right, everybody. Welcome to the Thursday Night Forum. Welcome to Arsenal Fan Circle, the summer edition. Is anybody out there? Let me know if you're out there. Arsenal fans, pull up a chair. You're all welcome here. And as the BX Gunner says, yes, thank God you guys are back. The original, all denominations are welcomed podcast. Yeah, listen, we have to cast the net wide, BX Gunner. We have to bring all of us Arsenal gooners together, because we're not going to decide on the players we want. Tony and I never decide on things. We never agree on things. And
Besides, you fucked me over at Selhurst Park.
yeah, Selhurst Park. We'll always have Selhurst Park, Tony. Welcome to the Thursday Night Forum, everybody. Yes, going live in just a minute. Tony was in the house. I was a little bit delayed. We're going to call Gary West Coast Gary. He's on the West Coast right now, I believe. Bonsoir, Canterbury Gooner. Riddy, good to see you. And let's have you back. Let's have you back, Riddy, backstage, and others backstage later this season. When the season starts and we get into the colder months, we're having the Sunday show again. We'll throw out that backstage pass and we can talk behind the scenes when the lights go down.
Speak for yourself, Ray. It's still March weather here, even though it's...
You cold? Is it cold out there, Tony?
It's like 75, which it's rained and it's rained. We pretty much have a full years of rain already.
It's a little bit warm here, but it does feel like the summer hasn't really started yet. Yes, there's been a lot of rain, One thing, Stan will probably be joining us. And Tony, if Alonso gets on ranting and raving that he wasn't sent the link, just send him the link, Tony. But, Alonso pops up. If you mention his name 2 or 3 times, he'll pop up as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like so Candyman.
Riddy, did you enjoy Kahoot? We'll definitely do Kahoot again. We will bring Kahoot back then in the autumn, right? And when the season, when we're into the season, Tony. Tony still remembers Selhurst Park, so we'll see. Get Gary, Stan, and more importantly, Alonso on. Yeah, the show must go on, and whoever's here is here, and we will talk Arsenal.
Gary and Stan are shouting distance from each other right now.
yeah, they're not far away, Gary and Stan, right now. Yeah, how far away would those two cities be? 300 or 400 miles, maybe a bit more, maybe.
Yes. It's right around 400, maybe.
All right, BX Gunner has gone full anti-Mikel, full anti-Arteta.
He supported him for so long. It's weird to
give him just one more season, BX. Give him just one more season. Give him a striker.
Yeah.
Give him a backup goalkeeper that's very good.
He's had them, right? Come on.
Give him a Spanish playmaker from Real Sociedad he can pair up with another Spanish midfielder who was either a 6 or a 9 this past season. Give him a winger. Give him a backup to Saka. Tony?
It's not enough, Ray.
Give him another defender, maybe Mark Guehi from Crystal Palace.
You know the way he uses these players, right?
BX said,
round peg, square holes.
BX said, you guys met me as an Arteta outer 4 years ago. I gave him enough time. Yeah, but now you're a little bit more vocal about it, Jose. You're a little bit more vocal about it. Listen, I get it. Maybe the season before last, when we finished 2 points behind Man City, was the time that we should have done something. We've been chronically. I'll give you the airtime, Tony. Go ahead. We've been chronically bad in the domestic cups. Go ahead, Tony. Take it away.
Yep, 3 years running out before the end of January. The first two were a record, so I'm sure this is close to being a record, not a record again this past season. And it's just what gets me about it. It's not like you're putting like Wenger. You would do the League Cup, and it's basically squad players and a shit ton of academy players. So there was a place for academy players to get
Yeah.
play, which is going to be crucial now because with this Champions League format, unless you're going against one of the crappier teams in there, you don't have, like for group stages, he, he played Scaselli and all kinds of shit players.
Hmm.
It's amazing some of the lineups we had in the Champions League, but those
Yeah.
guys still did enough to get us into the knockout stages. So
Yeah.
they did their
For me,
job. But my thing, Ray, is do you really want to be buying all these players when your manager's on the hot seat? Then your next manager would be, fuck, I don't need these guys. That's not what type of player I want. So then what do you do?
yeah. Yeah.
Especially some of the wages these guys command. It's
Yeah.
it's gonna
Ready.
be. You see how hard of a time we've always had getting rid of these players.
As Brady said here, Ray, you know how I am. I support the club. I want to win every game, not any individual. I think that's true, right? But the individual can be unnamed. The individual will be known as the Arsenal manager, and you can support the Arsenal manager and you support the team, but you're not tied to the Arsenal manager, whoever that may be. You're going. He is going to be judged eventually on results, and notwithstanding last season with all of the injuries that we had, um, there
Yeah,
has been opportunities to get to finals, and we've not gotten to a couple of finals and two finals this season, two semifinals that we've not gotten over the line. And the most damning one for me, and I agree with Riddy here, is the Newcastle Cup tie. Sick of people disregarding cup competitions. I don't know if we disregarded it. We put strong teams out, really, in my opinion. But the problem was we were prolific, prolificate is the word. We were shooting blanks, Tony. We were not
yep.
scoring and taking the chances that we created.
You're shooting blanks, right?
Yeah, shooting blanks. And Martinelli, one of them, Odegaard and Trossard were probably three of the biggest culprits this past season. You know, I'm not making scapegoats, but let's just say this: Odegaard only came back to full fitness toward the end of the season, scoring a couple of goals at the end of the season. Martinelli really, really disappointed this season, missed a lot of the season, and Trossard, whilst Trossard was ever present, his numbers did not elevate the team.
I mean, for me, it's hard to criticize him because as an attacking player, you want a stretch of games, and we've seen that the prior season. Start of the last 10 games, 6 goals. That's kind of what you want there. But for me, it's he keeps getting lucky because he buys Kai, terrible midfielder.
Mm-hmm.
Is anybody that disagree with me that he's a terrible midfielder?
I don't. You talking about Kai Havertz?
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't regard him as a midfielder. I might
and
regard him as maybe a between a 9 and a 10. He's definitely the best position for Arsenal has been as the number 9. If you give him a full season at 9, he might just hit 20 league goals in a season. He's not going to guarantee you 20, but very few strikers very
But
few
10 of
number
them are going to
nines
be
will
off his
guarantee
head,
you
right?
20 goals in a season. Go ahead.
10 to 12 of them are going to be off his head.
Yeah, 10 to 12 will be off his head. BX said domestic cups must be taken more seriously. I think we're taking them seriously. For me, the big problem is we don't have quality. We don't have
The,
enough quality to get us over the line.
the, but that's my whole problem with it, because he'll usually start with 5 first team players, then he'll eventually substitute off. Then you'll have 10 or 11. You'll have all your starters out there, and if you're not getting through the cup, especially the League Cup, with that strong of a team, there's something wrong there, because you're
Yeah,
finishing the last 30, 40 minutes with your normal starting 11, maybe if you have a goalkeeper or not. But last year we didn't really bench Rhea. He stayed in there the entire time.
yeah.
Why do we keep having to go to a goalkeeper tree, right? We keep shaking that thing out, and it keeps on popping out different size
Well,
acorns, but they're
we
still
did. We
acorns.
didn't. We wanted to get David Raya in, so we got David Raya in 2 seasons ago, and then we had Ramsdale. Ramsdale needed to play. He wanted to play first team football. Ramsdale had to leave. And listen, we fumbled last summer's window horribly. Ramsdale left, and what did we get? All we could do is scramble around for Neto. A goalkeeper that was cup tied. So David Raya had to play in the cups. Neto probably played 2 or 3 games for us. One of them in the Champions League that I know of. Um,
And,
and here we are
and
again. I think
Kep,
we're in a
is
situation
Kepa
where
is
we,
Kepa any better, Ray?
yeah, I think Kepa was part of the third best defense in the Premier League, I believe. So with Bournemouth, he had a good season. A lot of people think of Kepa, and we all remember Kepa in that Carabao Cup final, the Carling Cup final, where Sarri was telling him wanted to substitute him off, right? And Kepa was like, "This was 5 or 6 years ago," and I forget his full name, Kepa Arrizabalaga or something like that, right? Talking about the goalkeeper stand, Kepa. You remember 5 or 6 years ago in the Carling Cup final, Sarri wanted to take him off for penalty kicks.
He wasn't having
And
none of it, was he?
he was having none of it. So I think that's what people remember Kepa for being. Still the most expensive goalkeeper. He holds the record for being the most expensive goalkeeper. But I think since then he's matured a little bit. He's had a good season with Bournemouth, and I think that's a good pickup. What do you
Yeah, I
think, Stan?
just want to say good evening to everyone. Good evening, Ray and Tony. Sorry for my late arrival. I had an appointment at the barber shop. And hello to everyone that has joined us in the chat this evening. Canterbury
Thank you
is
for being
there.
here.
BX Guna is in there. And that's all. And the Arsenal Misfit.
Yeah,
Hopefully
there's a few people in there. So
we'll get a few more on the bus as the show goes on. But
Yeah.
speaking of this deal for the goalkeeper, I mean, that's exactly the kind of, I think, the kind of deal that you want to see. You don't want to dip too much into the war chest when you've got other positions. So to lay out 5 million for an experienced backup goalkeeper, and if David Raya has some sort of an injury and is out for a couple of months, we've got someone that can step in who's played in the Premier League, didn't have too much of a bad season last season at Bournemouth, and it's only cost us 5 million. I think it's a good canny deal. It's a lot better, I think, than going out and spending 30 million euros on who was the other guy that we were looking at? Joan Garcia.
Juan Garcia.
We're almost spending the sort of money that we spend on a first goalkeeper. So I think it's a good deal. And as unless David Raya's legs are falling off, he's going to play every game.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Kepa is a good pickup, and as you said, Sam, 5 million. Andrea Berta has done some good business there, knowing other positions around the field that we need to fill.
Turns out his salary is like 450 grand a week though. I was like, oh shit. No, I mean, I don't know what his salary is, but I mean, 5 million for the outlay is good, and I wouldn't imagine that his salary is going to be, over the 120 mark. I would say. Do you know what I mean? It could probably be a lot more cheaper than that, given his position in the team. But he's also said I like that he's come with the right attitude. He's not just coming, I'm just going to come and sit on the bench and wear a dressing gown and have some slippers on. He hasn't, he's actually said that he wants to. All right, John. See, Red John's just popped in. Thank you for joining us. He's actually said, he wants to fight for the number one position. He's probably not going to get it, but it's a good attitude to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. I'll get through a few comments and then we'll go to Tony with the goalkeeper, the backup goalkeeper. Canterbury Gunners really said, I think most modern day fans disregard domestic cup, especially when Spurs are winning. Yeah, we'll talk about Spurs winning that European Cup in a moment as well. We're gonna dip around the league. We're gonna dip into what Arsenal's been doing so far. BX said, I'm very interested to see Kai, Schwarzenegger, Havertz on the pitch. Did you see those guns? I didn't really particularly take a look at Kai Havertz. I want Kai Havertz to prove it to me, and be that person who's going to score a lot of goals for Arsenal. But notwithstanding that, we do want to get one of these strikers in the door as well. Brady said if we get Sesko instead of Gyokeres, that's concerning as the manager's reluctance to work with an established striker. All right, Tony. Rudy says he doesn't mind Kepa as number 2 to Raya. Only concern is the higher wages. Take it away, Tony. What are your thoughts? We have yet another goalkeeper change.
Can I just ask what are his wages?
I don't know if it would be exorbitant. I'm going to take a guess at around 200,000, but I wouldn't know at all.
Hope not.
But if anyone knows in the chat, let us know what the numbers would be.
That's generally about the amount, 180 to 200. But
yeah, I think that's quite high for a backup. For me, I think that's quite high for a backup goalkeeper. I'd like to see him. I mean, I was thinking
5 million offsets that, right?
Somewhere between 70,000 a week to maybe 130, 120. I was thinking would be respectable. If it's up at the we're almost getting into like Gabriel Jesus money, right? And if you think of what he's supposed to do for the team as a starter, all right, he's injured, but that's kind of like starting money for me.
And you missed it. I started off with Ray saying, what are we to do if we decide to sack Arteta and sign all these new players, but they don't fit the new manager's style? But you got these guys on high wages that don't want to leave.
Yeah.
If what Canterbury Gunner is saying right there, if what Rudy is saying is right, is that Raya is on is on less money than the Kepa who's coming in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I was in Raya's shoes, I'd want that addressed. I'd be like, I'm playing for you week in, week out. You need to bring me on parity. And and back in the day, I don't know if it still happens, but there used to be a contract clause that agents would get for their client, whereby certain players at the club were on one of the highest wages, and if the club brought someone in and paid them more, you would have to bring that other player up to parity. I don't know if that's still a clause that goes into contracts, but I know that some players used to have that. But if I was the number one goalkeeper doing all the work, I'd want to be rewarded the same as if someone's been sat on the bench and not playing. It's just the way of the world, right?
Yeah.
If you've been working in your company for 5 years in your job, and they bring in a new guy who's got he's got to have onboarding, and you've got to train them, and they might be new to that industry or whatever, and you find out that they're getting paid more than you, I'm pretty sure that you'd be making an appointment with HR to try and get that sorted out.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, Tony, if a new manager comes in, like any other club, the transfer windows will be mechanisms to move them on. And we've done it before, and we will do it again. Writing off contracts, letting players leave. It's not a good situation, but it's not a situation we're in right now where we're seeing a need for a new manager. We'll see what happens at Tottenham, for instance, if Thomas Frank takes that position from Ange, who got the sack.
He has taken it.
Yeah,
I think it's been confirmed. I was listening on Talk
and
Sport. They were talking about it.
What kind of work is Thomas Frank going to go to in changing the mentality within that dressing room? Because I rate him as a good manager, a good coach, Thomas Frank, and he'll make them a better club. He'll make them a better team. And it's to the extent as how he's going to make them a better team is going to be difficult to ascertain. But Tottenham with Thomas Frank will be a little bit. They won't finish 17th. Let me just say that in the league. Tony.
They're getting that big injection of cash from the Champions League, so he's more likely to spend it in a proper manner where they're not wasting money. Where I mean, their season was derailed pretty early from injuries, and so we'll see what happens to him. It's still shocking if you look at the table and see where Man U and the Spurs finished in the table, but I mean,
and usually,
it's like there's little room to get worse. So, I mean, it doesn't matter who's coming in there; it's a better team. So we'll see how good of a fit it is. But.
Yeah, and for sure, I think that Thomas Frank will bring a player or two from Brentford with him. It generally happens as well. The Misfit has joined us. He said, hard to win cups when you don't play to win. It's why we had such problems with the mid-table teams on winning 3 games. Playing not to lose at this level will kill you way too often. Arteta ball sucks. Listen, I think as well, we had teams out there that were strong enough to win games. I'm going to come back to it again. We weren't efficient enough. We weren't good enough. We didn't take the chances. We create chances. We don't take chances. And that's the big problem with Arsenal the last 2-3 seasons. We've gotten so close without getting over the hill. And that's why this summer we're talking about a striker, whether it be Sesko or Gyokeres, to be determined yet. Red John says Liverpool is upgrading on a title-winning squad with one of the hottest prospects in Europe with a price tag plus 100 million plus, and we're bringing in Sesko, someone nobody wants. Is that George Graham next season, bro, or GG, whatever that means, GG next season, bro. But listen, Liverpool, they're spending a lot of money on one player, Florian Wirtz. And they're going to be dependent on his fitness. They're going to be dependent on that one player to hit the ground running. And they're bringing in 2 fullbacks. They brought in a, what's his name from Bayer Leverkusen, Frimpong. And they're going to bring in Kirkes as well. So 2 fullbacks and 1 creative attacking midfielder. Who is still a prospect in Europe and had a couple of good seasons. Now, he's a hot property, but it's a lot of money as well for Liverpool. And at the same time, they're probably going to have to let a player or 2 go from their squad as well. So I don't see Liverpool doing any more business other than those 3 parts, in my opinion. Stan, if we had a 200 million war chest, Liverpool's pretty much spent that much already, 200 million.
I mean, as good as a player as Florian Wirtz is, what I'm interested to see is where they're going to play him in the Liverpool team, because he's basically a kind of a number 10 or a second striker. So is he going to be playing in the Firmino role as a false 9, being quite deep, with the wingers having to do, like the old days with Salah and Mane? Or are they going to change the formation to allow him to be in that number 10 position? Because number 10s are quite redundant these days, aren't they? It's really left 8, right 8, box to box.
Yeah.
Number 10s as such seem to be, at the moment, a little bit out of fashion. They'll probably come back into fashion as everything is cyclical. But I'm interested to see where they're going to play him. If they don't change their formation and they have a striker through the middle, does that mean that he has to play out of position, coming off of the left or coming off of the right? And for me, if you're going to spend that kind of money, like 130 odd million on a player to then not play them in their best position, then what's the point? If you're seeing what they're doing at the club you bought them from, you want them to replicate that. You want them to be playing in that position to get the best out of them. So I'm quite fascinated to see if they change their formation to accommodate him or whether he's sort of like played a little bit out of position.
Yeah, I think you play as false in that number 9 position, and it could be a slightly withdrawn role like Firmino was.
That's what I'm thinking.
5 or 6 years ago. That will bring Salah and whoever's going to be on the left wing into the game as well. Tony, what do you see going on up at Liverpool?
Yeah, I think they're doing business they need to improve a little bit, and we still got a lot to do to catch them. And it's kind of disappointing at this point that we haven't concretely bought anybody. I mean, one of them was basically done when a deal was still here, so that should be getting wrapped up. But for me, Liverpool, like I said, they're kind of doing what they need to, and we'll see what happens. I think actually we'll buy some more players. Right?
Looks to me like Liverpool are getting the business done kind of early. The Wirtz deal, the Frimpong is done, and Gyokeres coming in the door as well. And that's part of what is leaning into Arsenal fans being a little bit worried. We're looking at Liverpool, we're looking at Man City. Man City put a lot of players in January, and they've been signing a couple of players. And Sven Nipan.
Yeah, where's he going? I heard something about that. Where's he going?
City.
To City.
Yeah.
There's another bunch that are spending quite a lot of money. They don't seem to be worried about their pending 115 charges. I mean, we were kind of linked with that Svir Napan a few months ago. City's got him. They've also gone out and bought Cherki as well. Ryan Cherki. And they've also gone out and bought Dutch player.
Reinders.
Who I don't really know that much about, but all of these players come with a lot of accolades. When I've been listening to transfer shows by the ex players and so forth, they talk up these players.
And they're picking them up for 30 and 40 million. The price tags are not superstars, but you would bet that Pep will be able to polish them up and get them into working order and get something out of them this coming season. Seeing Red John worrying about us maybe coming third as well. Tony, go ahead.
I was saying that's what kind of price range you really want Arsenal being at on a lot of these signings because our depth is so bad. It's not that we need so many world-class players. You just need strong players with backup in every position, and hopefully a specialist in every position, not a utility player. You have one job.
Yeah, as Dan said,
and that's what you do.
As Dan said, buy them in his preferred position, and let them prosper there.
You only have to look at Kivior as an example for that. He's played games at left back. I would imagine those games were when there was no one else available. But what happened when we played him in his natural position? I don't want to sell him now, even though we might get more money for him. But then we'll have to replace him with someone and hope that person can come in when Gabriel Maghalaes isn't fit, and you don't see the join. Do you know what I mean? You don't see the seam because when Kivior has been playing. Not only has he had good games, he's been winning man of the matches, playing in the centre of defence. of a team that you would say that Arsenal was quite an attack-minded team, and it's a defender that's picking up man of the matches in Kivior. So
Yeah.
if Kivior's happy, because what I think is no player's going to be happy playing second fiddle, but I think that if he stays and the manager shows trust in him, he can rotate more games with Gabriel, and we don't have to run Gabriel Maghalaes into the ground, right?
Yeah.
You know, he doesn't get a hamstring injury because we can give him breaks and trust that Kivior can play cup games, rotate sometimes in the league with Gabriel, and we don't have to worry about that.
Right.
You know, we don't have to look at that position. And I think as well that the blips that you've seen in Saliba since Gabriel Maghalaes has been out, you know what a lot of people say about Van Dijk? They always sort of say, you can put anyone next to Van Dijk and he makes them so much better. I've got a feeling that Gabriel Maghalaes is similar. That Saliba plays a lot better when he's next to him.
Yep.
You know, and
100%.
I think someone like a Ben White and a Timber will as well. So if a Kivior can come in and replace that person, we don't have to worry about it. I'm happy with that because, again, it's a gamble. We've got to get someone else in. We've got to bed them in. They've got to understand how we play, and we don't know how it's going to work out. And if the manager starts sticking them out at left back, I mean, I felt sorry for Kivior. A lot of people go, he's rubbish. We've got to get rid of him. He's not up to the line of what we need. And I've always said, well, we've never seen the boy play in his natural position.
Yeah, exactly. You know? Every squad needs a player like Kivior. Every squad needs a player who's willing to sit on the bench for 75% of the season, but then come in and play some minutes at times. And it's up to Mikel Arteta as well to learn.
Steve Bold, we had a flat back four, and it was, some of the time it was Adams and Keown.
Yeah.
A lot of the time it was Steve Bold, and then as Steve Bold got a little bit older, Keown started to get more of the minutes, and Bold took a slight back seat. We could work it in that same manner, right? We have three good centre backs, 4 if you count Ben White, because I think Ben White's not a bad centre back, and again, Timber. I think Timber's quite a good centre back as well, and Calafiori. So I think we're quite stacked. And when Tomiyasu gets rebuilt, like the $6 million man, we can rebuild him. He's not bad as well.
I think we forget where we were 5 or 6 years ago, and the names. You can remember the names who we're talking about from 5 or 6 years ago. I see Tony's itching to get in. What's up, Tony?
I was going to say he started 22 times for Arsenal, and we've lost 2 games. That's over the 2 years that he's been with us. So, given that, I never understood the criticism of him because it's the position all those left backs are in, because they're left on islands when people are going up there and attacking from the left side. The defense is out of position.
When you look at Arsenal, though, we've been the best defensive team the last 2-3 seasons. When you look at Arsenal, our weakness is on the left side, and that's the only place we really lose goals through, Tony.
And it's because of strategy. It's like Arteta. I don't care if they're inverting or going outside. He uses them as wing backs. And to me, he might as well go to a back 3, like Stan said. We got a plethora of center backs. No, you said we had plenty of quality center backs.
The last thing I was saying.
No, but I'm just talking about the depth there, Stan.
Yeah, we're well stocked. Let me just say this. We're well stocked in the back, in the defense and the goalkeeping positions now. Listen, there's some talk about maybe Mark Guehi coming in, but this summer has got to be about adding the attacking players up front. Go ahead, Tony.
Can I say a couple of points to bring some good news to Red John? That Red John, you've already got one of your wishes granted, my friend, because Tierney's left the club. He is now officially a Celtic player. You don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about him anymore. That he's no longer an Arsenal problem. And like you said, John, that you said that, we'd be lucky to finish third this season. It's funny enough, and you can look back on the podcast at the beginning of last season when we were talking about, on the panel where we thought the team would finish at the end of the season. And a lot of people were saying first or second. I was saying for a long time that I was a little bit concerned, and I thought we'd finish third last season. I said I think we would struggle to finish second, and even as the season was progressing, I still stuck to that. I thought I thought we didn't have enough. What with the injuries and the over reffing and some of the in-game management, I thought that we were going to run out of a bit more gas at the end of the season and finish third. But I was wrong. We finished second. So I get where you're coming from. But, if they could finish second last season, that made me raise an eyebrow because I didn't think we had third. I didn't think we had second place in us last season at all. I didn't.
But I think that speaks of how even it was from second place to seventh place. And we were 2 games from, if we didn't get a win those last 2 games, we
That's
would
6
have been,
points, though.
We would have been in 6th place in the Champions League. And I was like Stan. I said we'd finish third because I thought these injuries would come up, but I couldn't predict how bad the Premier League is. I mean, who's that pick Spurs to finish 17th? I mean, I want to believe that.
I know, it's crazy, right? Spurs and Man United down there at the bottom, and Spurs beating Man United 4 times this season, and Spurs lifting a Europa League when the Champions League didn't drop the players down into the teams and down into the Europa League. The other thing I wanted to say was I was always pretty confident that we would finish second. I got a little bit worried the last couple of weeks where we needed to beat Newcastle, the second last game. That was really the thing that sealed our second place. We always look at the losses, and we only lost 3 or 4 games. I think it was 4 games at the end of the season. But that draw, we're all looking at the draw column, and the draws were too many for us to be able to bridge that gap.
I'll tell you what saved our bacon last season, because especially when the January window shut, and then we realised that we were without Gabriel Jesus, we're going to be without Havertz. There's nowhere that we can buy another striker from. Who knew that Marino was going to be able to slot in and get goals? I didn't see that one coming. I think that's what saved our bacon. Because when that window shut, I was we're definitely not finished second. Yeah. We just don't have any firepower now. And Odegaard's not on it. He sometimes it feels like we're playing with 10 men of the way that he played last season. So I definitely thought we were going to finish third. But Marino stepped up. And when we signed Marino, I was also a little bit,
Yeah, what does he do?
I'm not sure how this guy's going to, move the needle for Arsenal. And he has. Yep. And I think that little stint that he's done playing as a striker is going to help him when he plays in midfield. Because if you saw in the Home Nations game, I saw one of the Home Nations games with Spain playing, and he wasn't playing through the middle, he was playing in a midfield role, but he was still getting up into the box and scoring. So I think that experience is it's gonna help him, and I think he's probably got he's got a taste for it, right? He wants to score goals now.
You know what he's got about him? A little bit of an Aaron Ramsey about him. He knows how to time his runs into the box.
Lundberg used to do it as well.
Aaron Ramsey was really good at that.
Lundberg as well was very good at that.
Yep.
Can we do a Reba for Ramsey since Rambo's in Mexico? No.
Certainly can.
That's a good shot from Red. That's a good shot from Red John. What he says there. About,
left winger, right?
No. I'm talking about in the box here. He said to me that Mourinho should be playing Odegaard's number 10. He's got physical presence to get in the box and score with his head like a second striker.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we go into this season and Odegaard hits bad form again, or he doesn't come out of it, or he hits it in the future, we've always thought about, well, who could be put into that position? And I've always felt that Waneri was a good understudy to fit into that, right, attacking sort of a midfield role. But I think that's a good shout by John. I think that Mourinho would be able to fit in there as well, help out defensively. And as we've seen, he seems to have the flavour now when it comes to scoring goals. I think he likes that. He wants to do more of it. So good shout.
All right.
His position
Scores of his head.
is very good.
What, Tony?
He knew. I said his positioning is very good. He knew how to give him position.
Good timing. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got good timing. He's got a good eye for goal as well. So I don't know if this coming season, if he won't be playing striker for Arsenal, he'll be doing well if he matches his goals from last season next season.
But you never know. We might have a situation where Havertz and the incoming striker, whoever that may be, one of them gets injured, and so you have to have Mourinho as cover. We know that we can rely on him to be used as cover, right? Because we'd be left with one striker who can't do everything, right? That he can come on as a substitute and rotate. So I trust him in that position. I don't want to see him starting every game in that position. No, yeah. I want a proper striker. But I'm happy to know that if needs be, we can break the emergency glass window and stick him in there.
Yeah. Red John said no left winger striker with less goals than Jesus, despite an easier league. Why waste time? Just give Liverpool next season title. Well, let's wait and see what we do. This is what we're doing in this window. Until we sack Tata, we ain't winning shit, said Red John. I say give Mikel Arteta the tools, and then there's no excuses. Give him the striker. Zubimendi's happening, I think, but he is taking us up a level. Time will tell. Is he taking us up a level? Liverpool and City are out for blood next season. Not getting our business done early shows it's just more the same for Arsenal, not as serious or as ambitious as our rivals. I would say the window, like the season starts and ends on the same date for every team. The transfer window starts and ends on the same date for every team as well.
When does pre-season start? When does pre-season start? How long do we have till pre-season?
Late July, I think mid to late July.
Then for me, anyone that we sign, I want them in by then. It doesn't have to be tomorrow because you can't do nothing with them anyway, right? But I would like to see,
by the end of this month,
play a pre-season and not be playing catch-up.
So I'd say by the end of this month, we'd like to see at least the major pieces come in. Zubimendi's not an upgrade on Partey. He's a very different kind of player. That's true, Red John. So he's in taking us up a level. He's a like for like. I wouldn't say a like for like. I think they're very different players. And Partey will become the new Jorginho and hold bench.
Here's the thing with Zubimendi. If we can have reliability out of him, which we've never really had out of Thomas Partey, for me that's a step up. Because as good as the season that Thomas Partey was, last season, and somebody mentioned it in the chat box that might have even been John again, who's coming in with some good shit tonight, saying that Partey was the third. It might have been BX, who I can't remember, but somebody said that. They said that Partey was the third best defensive midfielder. That must be stats-wise in Europe.
Yeah,
which is not bad, but you have to consider the time that we've had him, the problems that he's had, the alleged problems off the pitch, which I don't know anything about, but we've all seen what people have been bandying about. His unavailability hasn't been what you would like. For me, I'm a little bit like once bitten. I've seen it happen too many times where you think we're going to get rid of a player, whether they're injured a lot or they've not been up to snuff, and then their contract's coming up and they seem to go through a great purple patch. You start to see that old player coming through again and doing the stuff that we all know. And then they get a new contract, and then it's straight off the other end. And I've seen it happen to so many players at Arsenal. Yeah. I don't want to go through that again. The thing is with Thomas Partey as well, he seems to be the sort of player that to get the best out of him, he needs to get runs of games.
Yep.
He's not the sort of player that can be out for a while on the bench. And then,
needs rhythm.
And then you bring him into a cup game, and it's like you're trying to start the engine. He's not up to scratch, and then he's not going to play the next game in the league. So then that game in the cup that you wanted to play him for, he's not up to it. So I'd rather have a player, and maybe that's a younger player, because a younger player is more hungry and got the energy that can come in when needed, and they don't have to rev up. Part of it for me is that if we are going to keep him, then he has to play more regularly, and it looks like that somebody like a Zubimendi might be getting more of his minutes, which is not going to be a help to Partey's form.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
We relied on Thomas Partey last season.
But then you have the other problem that if you do start playing Thomas Partey every week, you've got your fingers crossed that he's not going to pull something.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony.
And he's sitting there around the 200,000 a week category, which is why Arsenal haven't re-signed him yet. So basically, he's either take a pay cut or he's going to go bye-bye. I just... he's only a handful of times made the 25-game mark, just like Jesus, just like Kamiyasu, just like Zinchenko, like Tierney was. So to me, you've gotten about a year and a half out of a Partey that we thought we were buying. I mean, he comes in with a groin injury. Didn't really dazzle his first season. Not much his second season. It's like his third season. You see kind of like this half season out of him. But then he gets hurt. I just think it's too much of a risk. If your goal is to win the league or win the Champions League, you have to improve on Partey.
Yeah. And maybe, Partey is the Jorginho that's going to sit on the bench, I think Red John said. But that would be raising the bench. We'll speak a little bit about Jorginho as well, a little bit.
But as I just mentioned, if he's not getting runs of games, and that, are we going to get the best out of Thomas Partey? That's what I worry about. He seems like a player. It's a double-edged sword, right? He seems to me like the sort of player that needs to have runs of games, but then during runs of games, he's liable to pull something. So do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Whereas a Jorginho, you can use him sparingly, and when he does come in, he does good. And I'm not sure if Thomas Partey can handle that.
If we get an offer, it depends on what's going to happen this summer. If we get an offer that we cannot refuse when it comes to Thomas Partey, then, we can show him the door. Otherwise...
Yeah, and the caveat there is, for me, as I've always said, I don't care who we sell, but the caveat for me is that the person that comes in has to be an upgrade.
Yeah.
Just what I mean? So that means that the club can't be lazy. The lazy route for me is just giving him another year. For me, that's a bit lazy. Because if we do... Let's say he goes through... he has an injury and we can't use him, then that means that we're down a player. And that means that...
Well... That means that
Declan Rice at times will have to move back into a 6 because Zubimendi's not going to be able to play. If it is Zubimendi, you see what I'm getting at? We're going to have to move some pieces around because of Thomas Partey either being out of form or injured, and I don't want to take that gamble.
Are we upgrading midfield if Zubimendi comes in and Jorginho leaves? That's upgrading midfield, right?
Yeah.
By
I think Jorginho's on his last legs, isn't he? He's an old player. Yeah. He's not very mobile. So of course, if you're just looking at it in that thing, everything stays the same, but we're just replacing Jorginho with Zubimendi, then that is an upgrade for me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My only problem is the only thing with this Zubimendi thing is that worries me. I mean, I don't know. I don't watch the Spanish league, but I will say that again, people that know football, I'm talking about ex-players that are working as pundits or whatever, and current players as well, they really, really rate Zubimendi. They've obviously been watching him more than I have. And, I watched the Homes Nation game, and he looked very lively in that. Good assist as well. My only worry with Zubimendi, to be honest, is that he pulls a Mudryk at the last minute and does swan off to Madrid. Because obviously Madrid, I don't know how big you hear stories that not only does he like Madrid, he loves Xabi Alonso. So it's like, okay, but I mean at the end of the day, that Madrid will have to make an approach and put money down.
Yeah, and like I said in the description of this podcast, go and read it. I will not be enthusiastic about Zubimendi until I see him raising the shirt up over his head.
Let's not forget as well. He did lead Liverpool merry dance as well, right?
Exactly.
So he's got form in that area.
Yeah. But my hope is that he was waiting for the Spanish connections to come calling. He did play with Odegaard before. He's an international teammate of David Raya and Mikel Merino. And, of course, he's got to know the connections, the Catalonia connections, right, to Mikel Arteta as well. As Canterbury Gunners said,
FC, isn't it? We're turning to Basque FC.
Yeah. As Riddy said, this team needs players who can get us over the line, not ones who need time to settle in like Sesko, if you get him. We'll talk about Sesko and Gyokeres. He's played in the Bundesliga, so we'll get there. My contention is that he will, if it is Sesko, he could, I don't think he'd take a real amount of time to settle in, but keep a pin in that one. We'll talk about Sesko and Gyokeres in just a little bit, trying to keep everybody happy here. We could have also benefited from a more experienced manager. Good game. Okay, GG's good game. Thanks, Red.
Good game.
Higher than
All right, my lads.
Higher than 100. As I said for Florian Wirtz, higher than 110. I liked Bruce Forsyth. More importantly, they're getting their number one target. Shows they are flexing the muscles when it comes to Liverpool. So, go ahead, Tony.
But before we move on this, I think we did one thing that's criminal.
Okay.
We did the same thing. Last year with the same player.
Lock us up.
Well, you had Skelly, which I say at left back. He's better than Callum Fury is.
Yeah, but we didn't know that. We didn't know that last August, did we?
Yeah, you should have known it. You should have played him. He didn't show anything. He didn't show when he came in. There wasn't growing pains. There wasn't this or that. He just slotted right in there.
Well, you didn't know that in August of last year.
You got to think about it this way, Tony, right? You allow 45 mil to bring a guy in, and you go, you know what? I'm going to not play him. I'm going to play the kid. It was only because, again, it was one of those happy accidents. The football gods got involved, and made him have to pick Miles Lewis-Skelly in that position, and he nailed it down.
He forced his way.
He nailed it down.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the plan. I can tell you now that wasn't the plan, right?
No. But Calafiori he scored that goal at Manchester City. Stan and I talk about that golf wedge shot into the top corner. He played well against Southampton when he came on. He was playing well at the start of the season. He got injured at a certain point, and
he was not playing well, right?
Calafiori was playing well, I thought. But listen,
not on the defensive side, right?
Another fullback that's quite good in midfield areas and getting forward, but I've always thought that fullbacks were part of the defense, which means that you're supposed to defend, right? And I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you, Zinchenko. do you know what I mean? There seems to be, the game. Look at Trent Alexander. Again, right? A fullback, part of the defense. The worst part of his game is defending. He's better player. You know what I mean? So,
what's the El Clásicos this coming season? Rafinha is going to be up against Trent.
But I like Miles Lewis-Skelly because he can defend as well.
Yeah.
And I think his position in the youth was DM, right?
There's a couple of things I want.
Was it defensive midfielder? So again, if there is a problem with Partey, we know that we've got this guy that's come through and his trade is playing as a defensive midfielder. And it's not like we've not got other options for left backs. We've got left backs falling out of our pockets, man.
I want Miles Lewis-Skelly to learn the brashness. He picked up too many yellow cards for me. He picked up a couple of red cards. One again was not really his fault. It was a conspiratorial red card, the PGMOL.
I would say that if Arteta can improve Gabriel Maghalaes in that area, which he has, because he was similar when he first came in, then he can do it to MLS. And if MLS knows that that's what he needs to, if you want to keep in this team, I can't be having you booked all the time and missing games, right?
And red cards. And red cards are going to hurt us.
That will improve, but I still want him to keep his edge.
Sure.
Still wanted to keep a bit of his attitude, right? Because that's who he is.
He fights for the badge, Stan, and we, us fans, we love that as well. Red John said, when Liverpool break their transfer record, it's for the forwards. When Arsenal do it, it's defenders, but we also buy cheap forwards. So, we talked about two positions, the number 9 and the left wing, that needs to get upgraded in the forward position for Arsenal this coming season. Under Wenger, we always had the best strikers, said Red John.
There was an old adage. I don't know if it works for this football era, but especially if you go back to the Arsene Wenger kind of Ferguson era of football, and you spoke to managers, they will tell you, and I think Alex Ferguson said it, that defenses win you titles. They said that forwards win you games, but defenses can win you titles.
Yeah, but I think the Premier League has changed, right?
I said maybe that has changed now. What I'm saying is, I think that is the mindset that Mikel Arteta has. It's he's gone in since he's been manager, and he spent most of his time constructing a defence. I mean, the amount of goalkeepers we went through to find the right one. Do you know what I mean? The amount of left backs we've gone through. Buying when we bought Calafiori, that I was just like, we're buying another one, really. Yeah. I mean, I think we're pretty stacked in that area, but you want to buy another one. So I'm praying and I'm hoping that he can leave that all alone now. That part of the car is working fine, and now you need to work. He's obviously done a bit in midfield as well, right? He's gone into midfield. Marino, midfielder, Zubimendi. He's obviously even if it's not Zubimendi, he's bringing somebody in there as well, right? So he's done some work in the midfield areas. Declan Rice, he spent his most money on a midfielder.
Yeah.
I like to think now that with the money that is available, now let's get to the next chapter, which is like the front of the car.
I go back to
where we are now. You know what I mean? I don't want to see any more defenders. Don't want to see any more fucking midfielders. I want to see attackers now, wingers.
I go back to the last game that Mikel Arteta was an opposing coach at the Emirates. Man City 3, Arsenal 0, and we were ragtag outfit back then. I go back to that when Arteta was looking at us. It was the last game or two that City was going to play. Mikel Arteta obviously knew he was going to be taking the job, and he commented about how the stadium was so quiet and the spirit was not there in the stadium because the players didn't believe anymore. And I think he's kept that for the last 4 or 5 years with his obsession over control in midfield and minimizing the amount of shots against us. Under Emery, I'll go to Tony. I think Tony will want to get in here. Under Emery, we faced something like 30 shots a game under Emery, and it's been reduced down now by Mikel Arteta to, single figures probably each game.
But you got to score to win or draw games.
Yeah.
We got way too much in the drawing this season.
Score to win, score to break ties, and get that winning goal.
What I was mentioning is we got $188 million for finishing second. We got over $100 million from the Champions League.
300.
So right there's $288 million, nearly $300 million.
Yeah.
That doesn't include what we already have saved up. So we should be able to buy anyone we want. So why don't we go buy fucking Premier League strikers? We don't need to take a gamble. I know we'll get to it later, but why?
So why bring it up now?
An unknown thing when you got known things out there, and you got other Premier League teams looking at those players and can sign those players, so if they can go out and get those players, why can't we? We got the money to spy. I don't want to hear any excuses. No reason we can't go get.
But I also think as well, when we look at how much money we win in different competitions and we total it all up, we think, okay, we've got we've got this big number now that we can spend on players in the next window. I think you have to look back at previous windows and go, well, that 100 million for, Declan Rice, that money came from somewhere. Do you know what I mean? If you're getting money from one hand, you have to pay back, right? And, I don't think the Cronkies are people that are just, here's money. You don't have to pay us back. You do have to pay us back, but at 0% interest. So I do think that sometimes when we get money coming in, it's not all just for players. We're still paying off a tab. Plus, as well, we like to structure deals as well, don't we? We don't like to go out and go, how much is a player? 70 million? There you go. There's a big stack of 100s. We just wait while you count it out. We like to structure it. We give you 5 pence now, and each week we'll give you another 7 pence, but we'll deduct 3 pence, and at the end of the month we'll give you 20 quid. And the buying club's just going like, what? The player's 70 million, mate. It just pay the money, but Arsenal like to. So I do think that sometimes, every time we get this money in, we're still paying off tabs as well.
Yeah.
Bank loans.
Zinchenko's a midfielder and a good one at that. He needs to go to a club that's going to play him there. Yeah. Play Scally Calafiore in the left, Ben White, Timber on the right. How about Tomiyasu? Don't forget about Tomiyasu.
As I think Canterbury said earlier on, apparently the word is he's joined the Yakuzas now. He's working for them.
Who?
The Yakuza.
Tomiyasu has. All right, so we're gonna push on into midfield and forward pretty soon. Other news, Tony. Gabriel Maghalaes. So Andrea Berta has done some business already. It's not the big business yet. It seems like, and we'll talk about his approach with strikers. Seems like he gets a couple of deals cooking, and then he cooks meals, and then he decides which meal he wants, basically, right?
He cooks them, and then he puts foil over them, and he puts them in the freezer. You know what I mean? And he knows he's got meals now for the rest of the week. He's that sort of guy.
Yeah, but which meal he's going to have on Sunday, and that's which striker we're going to sign. But Tony, one bit of business that he did do is he's extended Gabriel Maghalaes.
Our de facto captain. You can see it from the huddles. I've mentioned it over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
And especially if you pay attention on set pieces and stuff, he'll call something and go see how the other team lines up. Then we'll either talk to him or go back up there again before we do the free kick. And I think that's a lot of why we kind of spiraled at the end of this season. We had that downward spiral we've had the end of the last 3 seasons, and I think it was more so this year because Gabriel's our captain. He might not have a captain's armband, but he is the captain. As Stan was mentioning early, slight discipline problem, not too much. I think you're being too hard on Skelly. He's 19. You had Tony Adams. You had Vieira, yes. I think you're being hard on Skelly. He's 19.
I don't want red cards. I don't want cards beside his name.
It's something we get under Arteta. We've led the league every year. So.
Yeah, but Arteta's not out there pulling players down when it comes to that stuff, And whether it's harsh or not, Miles Lewis-Skelly, we love the effort. We love that you're putting the shirt on and you're playing for the fans. But you got to think a little bit as well, and not get on the wrong side of the referee and get sent off in these situations. Because you know what happens, Tony? If this goes into next season and he gets more red cards, he's going to start getting a reputation with referees, and he'll be the new Granit Xhaka.
He's young, Ray. He's not.
I'm telling you now, and you can't defend him by saying he's young. He should know enough now within the game. He's a professional footballer. He's playing for Arsene. He's got an obligation to the other 10 players on the field not to get sent off in these situations.
He's young, man, as well. Wayne Rooney was the same when he came. You know what I mean? It's one of them. He'll get tamed. He'll still have an attitude, but he'll understand the value of being able to be available, not be available due to suspension, and getting taken off of games and leaving his teammates in the lurch. Because I guarantee you, when you get pulled off for a red card for something stupid, you've left your mates in the lurch, and after the game, they're going to tell you. Because I would. You just left me in the lurch, man. Well, this is a team game. It's supposed to be 11v11, not 10v11. What are you doing?
I don't know who told me this story, but it was about, I think it was about Lee Dixon and Tony Adams pinning someone up against the wall and saying, this is North London Derby. I don't know who told this story.
Who did they pin up against the wall?
Somebody else can tell me in the chat box or Stan.
Who was it? Yeah, I've heard this story as well.
Lee Dixon and Tony Adams. I think it was a French player. Was it Henri? Was it Henri? Because I think he said something like that.
It might have been Henri or Vieira. I don't know.
Yeah. There's like, you better understand, this is Northern Derby and this means something right now. Right.
And then didn't they go out and like do something like score 2 goals or something like that?
Yeah. Stan, the other thing
I'm pretty sure that was Vieira.
Right.
Vieira had early discipline problems.
I never commented on Maghalaes' contract.
Go ahead.
I think the biggest signal that him putting pen to paper for me is, no matter what you think of Mikel Arteta, whether you think he's the right manager for the club, or whether you think he's the wrong manager for the club, what this tells me is that the players believe in whatever their plan is. They're trusting the process, for want of a better cliche, and they want to play for this manager. Because I guarantee you now, if Maghalaes wasn't happy and he decided that he wasn't going to sign a contract, he would not be short of suitors.
No.
There'd be a lot of clubs that would be willing to break the bank to get Gabriel Maghalaes on their team.
In the Premier League as well.
That's how good he is. I think in many leagues. In many leagues.
Yeah.
Barcelona, maybe even Madrid would come sniffing. Do you know what I mean? If he said, I'm not signing the contract. So for him to do that shows that he obviously still believes in this journey that he's on with Arsenal. And that's going to send out a big signal to other players that are coming up to go into contract talks, like his best buddy Saliba.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed.
You know, and then you look at that contract, so Saliba's looking and, he's agreed a contract and he's getting paid X, you know. He probably would read about what the contract is. Okay, now I know what I'm going into for my negotiations. Do you know what I mean? You know, I'm quite happy to earn the same. Put us on parity. We're both you know what I mean? That's it. Job done. Happy days.
Really said it was Tony Adams who did that to Lee Dixon. Ray, when are you getting Lawrence back? I think Lawrence has moved on to pastures.
That's right. That's right. It wasn't Tony Adams and Lee Dixon gripping someone up. It was Tony Adams gripping up Lee Dixon.
Lee Dixon.
Yeah.
And I think Lee Dixon got the message loud and clear. Odegaard's last season was 2+ years ago. Man's washed. Lawrence is on other pods where his views are amplified. Amplified in volume or amplified in other ways. He found the soap opera to his liking. He found some new programming to his liking. Let's just say that much.
I still feel like I triggered his exit because the week before he said it was 5 weeks, which is 35 days. But the next week he said it was 49 days when it would have been 42 days. And I don't think he liked me correcting him.
Tony left because of you, Tony.
He thought I was the only one in the boat with him, but
the powers of this one is strong, but I don't think it was just one Jedi that did that. That did this work.
I left him in the sinking ship, right?
The force is strong with this one. You got the gloved hand as well.
Yeah.
The style of play has to change. Otherwise, going to be same old whoever we get as a striker. So I'm a little bit of a firm believer, and you could both of you can fight me on this one if you want, but I'm a firm believer in the players dictate the style of play. If you
You
bring in a
don't,
player,
I
if
don't
you
think
bring in a
so.
player like Gyokeres or Sesko, they're physical players. You're gonna have to start playing. You'll naturally play a little bit different to those players.
But
They're just,
but if you're buying either one of those strikers, it's because of what it is that you've seen them doing, right? So then, don't you want to service that? If they're a
yeah,
player that likes to play to feet, then you're going to have to make sure that to get the best out of him, that the service is into feet and not coming in over the top.
yeah.
Do you see what I mean? You're going to have to slightly adapt if you want to. You should be playing to somebody's strengths, which is why managers like Thomas Frank. One of the things that Tottenham will benefit from by having a manager like Thomas Frank is he seems to be the sort of manager that does improve players.
Yeah.
And that's a good trait to have.
Yeah. And he'll understand the likes of maybe Solanke or Heung-min Son or Madison, how to get the best out of those players, how the midfielders should pass to them. And I think he's a dangerous appointment. I think a manager can be a very good appointment in reawakening a club, but I'm a little bit fearful of what Tottenham will do next season. He may even improve them well enough to be playing some kind of European football. That's a bold statement.
I don't think that's that bold, right? Because they had all those injuries early on. That they were up in the
Well, they lost
European
20
spots.
games
Yeah,
last
but
season.
that's after their players got hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Starting off, they weren't that bad.
What do you think, Stan? What can Thomas Frank do with that team?
Well, when I look at Tottenham and Man United, and people say both of those teams won a trophy, therefore they had a better season than Arsenal. And I think to myself, well, if I was a Man United or Tottenham fan, taking the cup out of it every week in the league was miserable. It was no fun.
Yeah.
Seeing your team get your arse handed to you by teams that you should be beating, or seeing your team be ahead by a number of goals in the game, only to end up losing that game. How is that a better season? Yes, you won a cup in a cup competition, and there's your flowers. But if you're finishing like 13th, 14th in the league, I don't see it as a fan how you've had a better season, because if you don't win that cup, do you know what I mean? Then you're still back to all them losses, right? It doesn't just wipe it all away.
I don't know when like Arsenal were not good in the league. What was it, 92, 93? Arsenal were not good in the league. We were in the bottom half of the table, but we were able to go and win 2 cups in that season, right?
And that moment was enjoyable. Those moments were enjoyable, but week to week in the league.
But didn't that save your season? They used to say the FA Cup could save your season.
Yeah, but as you said, that was 2 cups.
But
2 cups.
That wipes away a lot. That wipes away a lot. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a double. I mean, I hate when people will try to tarnish a double of any sort. A double is a double. You win 2 cups, it's still very successful.
But there's a huge difference of finishing 17th than finishing 17th, but you're in the Champions League, so you're out of one of the top 32 teams in Europe in that way. And so that means they can go sign the players they want to. If they finish that, there's a chance that they are a relegation team. And United might be that team. If we see United relegated, everybody's going to be happy. I guess I'll say Manchester United, because some people don't like when you just say United.
But when I look at Man United and Tottenham, and going back to what you say about Thomas Frank at Tottenham, I would say that if you're looking at tiers of manager, if you was to build a tier, I would say that Jose Mourinho and Antonio Conte are in a tier, maybe 2 tiers above Thomas Frank, if you look at their CVs and what they've achieved in the game. And neither of those two could be successful at Arsenal, which tells me that there's more going on at that club behind the scenes that make it very difficult to be successful, because off of the pitch, that stadium, they earn a lot of money. You know, their outside of football revenue is around about $1 billion a year. I mean, they got Beyonce performing at that stadium. In the next
we had Robbie Williams at the Emirates, didn't we?
But they earn a lot of money on their commercial side and the stuff that they do with that stadium, right? And you would think to yourself, well, that money doesn't go into buying players and big wages, because they don't spend a lot on wages either. So they sort of handicap themselves. And I just think to myself, you know, as much as I like a Thomas Frank, if Mourinho couldn't get a tune out of him, and look how they treated the guy. I mean, just before their first a final in how long? But it's like, I would get rid of him. Even if you don't like the guy and it's something personal, you would say, for the good of the team, but you know what, I'm going to put up with this prick because he's got us to the final. And if you don't win the final, he's getting his marching orders. But if he does, then maybe you know what I mean. Yeah. But no, you let your emotions get in the way.
But there's a level worse.
And look at
Andrew. The worst thing about modern football, those stand is that the players
no loyalty to Big Ange.
Snack.
Yeah, but there's no loyalty to Big Ange. Andrew's shitting their fucking league, right? But he said, I really wanted him to lose, because when he said, you know, I always win something in the second season, I was like, I really want that to bite you in the arse, man. You don't know how much I want that to come back and bite you in the arse. Yeah. But he did. He did. And they still sacked him. 17 years without a trophy. He delivers it, and Daniel Levy goes, no. Yeah. No.
Mourinho had 2 teams quit on him. It just that's horrible that the professional
Man United and Tottenham. Right?
Yeah. I just don't like how football players can do that, and they still earn their full wages. It just
and then on the other side, if you look at Man United since Alex Ferguson's left, they've tried everything. They've tried ex-players, they've tried international managers, they've tried up-and-comers, they've tried proven winners. They can't seem to get it right either. And you've got a manager there that says, I don't give a shit about the results. Like, I am not changing this formation. I don't care. I'm not doing it.
Yeah. That's crazy. Listen, there's a lot. It's crazy. Good podcast tonight. There's a lot of people here watching, listening. Take a moment, slap the like on the podcast. If you're new and you haven't subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I don't often ask for that, but please do that.
They screwed up because they listened to Ray. Ray always wanted their manager sacked, even though they finished second and third United. But Ray did not like that manager.
Ray who?
You. Ray?
I didn't like who?
You know who you didn't like, Ray.
Here we go. The guessing game.
I will say though, I like that. I like Ange. I did like Ange Postecoglou. I did like.
That's who we are, mate.
I did like him. It was entertaining. I wanted.
If he was one of the 7 dogs, mate, he'd be grumpy, wouldn't he?
It was a horrible choice to have to make between Tottenham and Manchester United. For me, I did not want the Red Devils to be reawakened. So
It still reminds me of that bloke from the Chinese succulent news video as well.
Ollie Gunner, Ray. Ollie Gunner.
Succulent Chinese meals.
I did not want Ruben Amorim and Manchester United to be in the Champions League and Manchester United to become a force again. So it was a horrible decision. I'm happy enough that Tottenham won the trophy. I know in some sections of London that is sacrilege, and for me to say that, but I've always considered Manchester United as our bigger rival because I lived through the Ferguson and Arsene Wenger years, the George Graham and our Alec Ferguson years as well.
I know Stan was with me on this because messaged each other, but what Spurs winning that cup, it sucks because it's the Spurs. And what's even worse is now we have the 10th longest trophy drought out of the Premier League.
Yeah. And listen, that has to end. That we are in the middle of a window. We're in the middle of a window where we have players who can get us over the line. Giants of the game like Gabriel Maghalaes, David Raya, William Saliba, Declan Rice, Bukayo Saka. Oh, even Odegaard if he's in form. These are players who can take us over the top, but we do need the players to go along with them as well. You know what I mean?
I'm still gonna stand up on my little molehill. Don't care how many times it gets mowed over. I
So,
still think that I still think Odegaard's up to the position change. We went from the 4-2-3-1 to a 4-3-3. So he's a box-to-box midfielder instead of being a attacking midfielder, and that makes a world of difference.
Okay. Listen, we can no longer hold off talking about the striker situation, so let's get into it. Red John says here, Gyokeres is literally fighting with the Sporting president. He doesn't want to wear the shirt again for Sporting. We could 100% sign both Sesko and Gyokeres. I mean, we could probably afford it, but we're not going to do it, right? You know?
No.
We should do it, though. That
would be flexing. That would be flexing.
I have a better suggestion, but we can come to that.
Okay. I think we should do that suggestion plus one of these two. You know what I mean? That's what I would do. I think I know what you're going to say. Tony.
Yeah.
Yes,
no,
right.
Maybe not.
Yes, right.
Sesko or Gyokeres? What's happening, Tony? As Andrea Berta's got both of these meals cooked to a certain degree.
And they're succulent. BX knows.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I'm even though I'm terrified since we've done terrible going to Portugal for these players, but I still go there and get him. Sesko, too young, not enough experience. It takes suggesting any way to get into the Premier League. If you gotta get one of the two, you gotta go to Portugal and get your player and get him into Emirates. But not go to Dubai, because that's how Kai got hurt, because we needed to go to a fucking desert for rest.
In the last week or so, we've been discussing, with Fabrizio Romano, initial concrete talks with RB Leipzig a week ago. Developed somewhat to be more substantial talks, but more recently, in the last 2 days, and the first window of the transfer window has shut. Crazy that there's two windows, but anyway, that's another discussion. Now, more recently, Stan, we hear of the Gyokeres agent being in London, and we started to talk to Sporting Lisbon. And I actually believe that we've had our first bid rejected for a Gyokeres of 65 million.
As I understand it, listening on the wireless, as I do sometimes, making it sound like it's in the war. What they're saying is that Gyokeres was under the impression that him and the top dog, the president, had some sort of a gentleman's agreement. So that's a grey area. There's nothing on paper here, and it was something like that he could leave for 59 million euros or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I don't know what it was. It would have equated to something like 65 million pounds, 67 million pounds, something like that. But now, this chairman's come out and said, like, hey, there weren't no gentleman's agreement. And if we're going to sell him, we're selling him from, up to around 80, 70 to 80, something like that, right? They were saying something like, we are not going to accept 69 million pounds plus 10 million in add-ons. So they're playing hardball. They're like, they don't even want the add-ons. They're like, we want this price, right? So now that's caused a bit of animosity between the player, who was under the impression that he had some sort of an agreement, and now that's been reneged on. or it could be the other way. Who knows? But there's unrest. I don't know, and I don't know whether that opens the door for Arsenal or that opens the door for another team in London. But if the ownership don't want to sell him, or they only want to sell him for their amount, then they're in the driving seat here, because it's not like he's got a contract that's running out. They've got all the time in the world, and as I understand it, what was it the president said? Victor Gyokeres is the record scorer in the history of the Premier of their league in Portugal, something like that. Since they've had that league, he is the top man, right?
Yeah.
Why would we want to sell that? Something along those words, right? So if they are going to sell this person, in their mind, they want a hefty return. So that's what I've heard what's happening with Gyokeres, right? I'm not in the know, just listening on the wireless, right? You could all have heard it. But what I'm going to do is, right, I'm going to give you my opinion on Gyokeres and Sesko.
Yeah. And
then I'm going to tell you what I would do, right? So for me, and again, this is just like, I'm no Clive Palmer or James McNicholas. I don't watch loads of games. I'm not a football analyst. This is just my opinion from what I read, clips that I've watched and all of that, and people that do breakdowns on players. But for me, what I've learned about Gyokeres, I'm really concerned that what he gets away with and what he's able to do in the Portuguese league is not going to translate
fully
to the Premier League.
Yeah.
Also, his position of play, from some breakdowns that I've watched, is he really likes to work from the left, which is already a congested area from us. We all know that we want someone that's going to get into the box maybe and use their head. I'll come to that in a minute. He seems to come off the left a little bit. We're always looking at buying a left winger. We want a striker that goes for the middle, right? Saka coming on the other side. We don't need this guy out on the left. And the plays that I watch, he'd come in from the left and there'd be a lot of space to gallop into, which I'm not sure that he would get in the Premier League. And then there'd be this one little defender trying to take him on, and he'd be able to knock him off the ball and score. And I'm thinking to myself, one, he ain't going to get all that space. And the defender that he's going to come up against, he ain't going to be able to just knock off the ball like he does in the Portuguese league. They're going to be more about it. So I'm not sure that he'll be able to get away with the same things that he does in Portugal. Do you know what I mean? That he's going to be able to get away with in England. That's my concern with Gyokeres. With Sesko, everyone is saying, like, this guy could be the next big thing. He could be better than Haaland. The way he's progressing, he could be this, he could be that. And I just think to myself, well, if he's going to be the next best thing, how do we know that we will reap the benefits when he reaches his peak? Because I can see it now. How old is he? 21, something like that. Let's say he takes a couple of seasons to bed in, and just as he starts to hit his peak, and we've done all that groundwork, getting him to this and putting him on the platform, a team comes in, like a Real Madrid or someone, his head's turned, and off he goes. No loyalty, because it's a job at the end of the day. He's not from North London. You know what I mean? It's a job. If his head's turned by a bigger opportunity, we could lose him. And we've done all that groundwork, and all this great prospect, we're going to have to watch him be the full thing from afar. And I'm like, that's too much of a gamble for me.
Yeah.
I don't mind putting the work in, but there's no guarantee that we will reap the benefits, right, if his head gets turned. So there's my two arguments against Sesko and Gyokeres. So I'll tell you what I would do. I want a player for today. And as I say, Sesko's not a player for today, apparently. And Gyokeres might not be a player for today because of the problems that he might have translating it. So if I'm going to get a player for today, I'd spend about 50 million, 45 to 50 million on Ollie Watkins. Because I know that Ollie Watkins sharing with Havertz, and if a fully fit Havertz is going to get you, can score goals. I wasn't a fan of Havertz when we signed him. I'm like, what are we doing now? What's that all about? Was not happy at all. And again, he's done a little bit of, remember what I used to say about Danny Welbeck? Remember that story? When I found out that we were signing Danny Welbeck, I was spitting feathers. How dare we? How dare we? Do you know what I mean? But Danny Welbeck grew on me because when I used to watch him, I could see the work that he was doing, and I got to like his character. I got to enjoy Danny Welbeck so much now that when I hear him on the TV and watch a match of the day, Brighton and Danny Welbeck's playing, I want to watch it.
Yeah,
I want to see him do well. And Kai Havertz has grown on me. I think Kai Havertz is good for 15, maybe 20 goals a season. And if there's going to be someone else to share with him, why not Ollie Watkins? Because Ollie Watkins can get you 15 goals if he's starting every game as well. So maybe 20, especially playing with some of the players around us. So you have the potential of those two players. Say you've only spent like 40, 50 million now. And what I would do to complement that setup, I'd go straight out and get Jonathan David on a free. Because Jonathan David is available on a free contract. And if you look at his stats, right, in his first season, right, I know that he plays in the French league, but some French league players have come over and done well, even though it's a farmers league. But in his first season between 2020 and 2021, he played 37 games. Who knows how many of those were off the bench, whatever. This is at Lille. And he scored 13 goals, got 2 assists. In the next season, he played a game extra, 38 games. He got 15 goals, no assists. But then in the next season, 2022-2023, 37 games, a game less, he scores 24 goals, 4 assists. The next season, 34 games, so less games. He had 37 in the season before. 34 games, 19 goals, 4 assists. And in the season just gone, 32 games, 16 goals, 5 assists. So, you know, the guy could score goals. So I would rather spend money on it rather than going in for a Gyokeres, which for me could turn out like an Anthony, someone that doesn't fit that league. You spent all that money. Another Nicolas Pepe. We can't afford to do another Nicolas Pepe. We just can't afford that for our reputation. We can't afford to get a player in from a Portuguese league for about 70, 75 million pounds, and it doesn't work out. We'll be slaughtered for it. And Sesko, they're saying that he's a prospect way off. And I don't want to win the season way off. I want to win the season next season. I want to win it now. So I'd spend that money on Ollie Watkins. I'd get Jonathan David on a free. I know it's a bit football manager and the players might whatever, but this is what I would do. And even if Jonathan David in a few years' time and you sell him, you're going to make a profit. It's an investment for later on down the road because you got him for free. And that's what I would do. And then to couple that with the money that you save by making a move like that, you now have more money to go to Real Madrid and sit down at the table and start talking to Rodrygo. Because you've got more money that you've just like saved by doing that by doing that careful move. You've got two players that can play in the league today. One guaranteed in Ollie Watkins. You've got Havertz who's guaranteed. Whether you like him or not, he does score goals. Yeah, he does miss some sitters, but he scores at least, he'll get you 15 goals if he's fit. You bring in someone like a Jonathan David as well. You've got Mourinho as backup. If there's any injuries in that area, you can come in with goals if it's like break glass. And they've got all this money surplus to go and make a big move for Rodrygo and make him your marquee, one of the faces of the club signings. That's what I would do.
Yeah. As Riddy said, you know, Berta's not given any interviews and not said anything about who he wants. And the business we've done on Kepa is a small amount of change. The business that we're going to do on Zubimendi, which I believe we're adding an extra 4 or 5 million so we can pay over 5 years.
Apparently, the only reason that we haven't signed him now is because the selling club, they want to balance their PSR, and for them, it's better for them if they do that deal on the 1st of July.
In July, yeah.
The only thing that worries me, that gives time for his head to be turned. This Real Madrid shit. But then again, we had the same stuff with Declan Rice. Remember when we were trying to do the Declan Rice deal, Man City were making noise, or there were reports. Do you know what I mean? That didn't mount to nothing. So,
but isn't that when all the deals in stand as like June 30th, end of June. That's when
Yeah, books.
that's when all the contracts come to their end.
Fiscal year. You're turning in your books. Everyone
And
accepts
also
it
is
eventually.
I haven't heard anybody link to David yet. Have you?
Anybody what?
Link to Jonathan David because I haven't heard his name mentioned with any club.
I don't know whether he will end up extending if no one comes in for him, but if he's on a free, it's a no-brainer. You know, we bring in 2 forwards and we go and get a Rodrygo.
Oh.
For me, the perfect window would be Ollie Watkins, Jonathan David on a free, Rodrygo, Martin Zubimendi, Evericci Eze, and the 5 million on Kepa. That for me would be like an 11 out of a 10 window. If you could sneak someone like an Evericci Eze in there. Again, you know, Premier League, ready. I mean, I like Xavi Simons as well, but someone like an Eze, for me, he knows the Premier League and he's performing at a good level in this league. So, you know, get that in.
I don't know why we haven't went for him. That's one of those like why
Can play in a number of positions as well. He's one of those players that, you know, can play in a number of positions and is happy to do that. And another name that I find strange that hasn't been mentioned, and some of the guys here in the chat box have brought this name up. Victor Osimhen. It's like no one is talking about him. There's no stories about anyone. What is the deal there? I mean, this guy was a hot property, and I love him. And I love a mask. Me, is his temperament that bad? I mean, he got properly dissed in Italy.
Wasn't it Jose Mourinho or is it Conte?
The fans and everything. He got really disrespected. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like his own club put something up that was quite, you know, racially toned. You know what I mean? And the guy just stuck up for himself.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything else about him. But it just seems very weird that someone that was one of the hot properties and, you know, his striking rate in Europe is playing at Galatasaray, and there's no one. Trossard was a problem at Brighton apparently, and we got a good deal for that. So why is nobody going in there? Do you know what I mean? We're thinking, okay, he's obviously not wanted by his home club. They're willing to farm him out to Galatasaray. They want to move him off the books. Let's go in with a nice low ball offer and pay him a good wage. Why is that not happening? So is there something about this guy behind the background that we don't know? I mean, it's just weird that no one seems to mention. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the wages for Osimhen as well.
I don't think his wages would be any more than Gabriel Jesus's.
The Saudis are the only people I've heard that.
There's no. But even there, the Saudis, there's nothing. Nobody seems to be sniffing around this guy, and I just find that odd. You know?
Yeah.
And he's playing well in Turkey. It's not like he's gone in a slump. He's still banging them in.
I think the wages are the big deal for him. I mean, Tony's talking to Arsenal players who are going to be very hard to move on because of the contracts they're on. Osimhen is probably in that sphere as well.
But if he's able to, the biggest commodity in football is goals.
Yeah.
Right? And if he's able to provide that, then you would pay him. I mean, look at a player like Kevin De Bruyne. Yeah, very important to Man City and a good footballer, but he's not a prolific goal scorer. Look at the money that he was on per week. So why wouldn't someone like Osimhen, who is proven, why shouldn't he be paid what he's worth, right? But what I'm saying is, I just find it odd. Isn't no one even trying to negotiate with him and say, look, we're going to take you to this top club in Europe, get you out of Turkey, but we're not going to pay you X, but we'll get you. Do you know what I mean? Is no one even talking to him, trying to do a deal? Say, look, you want to stay in Turkey, fine, but you want to come and play for us in the Spanish league or in the English league, whoever. Do you know what I'm getting at? There's like nothing.
Yeah. I think
there's got to
look
be
at Rashford.
that
Look at
we
Rashford.
don't know.
Rashford said that he was happy to go to Barcelona and would take a pay drop. So do you know what I'm getting at? It's not like Osimhen's got. It's not like Osimhen lives in a tent in a park. He's made a lot of money. Surely there's a negotiation, but it doesn't seem that anybody, unless they are, and I just haven't heard about it. But you don't hear his name mentioned about anything, do you? You don't hear about talks or rumours or nothing. So I like him as a footballer.
I think the only Premier League team I've heard him linked to is United, and I don't see why he would ever go there right now. So.
Chelsea, or they've gotten the lap. They brought the lap in.
So but supposedly they're still wanting attackers though.
Red John says Sesko scores 1 in 3 games in the easy league. I think the Bundesliga is, not the easiest league in the world, but not the worst either. Not the most difficult. So the Sesko is a little bit of an unknown quantity. Would need to come up to speed in the Premier League.
But in Sesko's favour, I would say, talking about him, between him and Gyokeres, if you're saying to me you've got to choose one of them two, you can't do your Ollie Watkins and Jonathan David. You have to choose one of these two.
Yeah.
Then I would probably go for Sesko, because again, you think of the way that we play. As I mentioned, that Gyokeres coming in off the left. The way that we play with the wingers, and you can see that we do like to use crosses now. Gyokeres, in his last 68 games, you know how many headers he scored? One.
One, was that? Yeah.
One. And one thing about Sesko is that, he does like to score he can score with his head, and apparently he's got really good hand time. He's big, he's strong, he's tall, he can get into the middle, and even though his numbers aren't as prolific as someone like an Isak or a Gyokeres, playing the way that we play, if there are chances that are coming into the box, he might get more opportunities, right? So if I was going to choose out of Gyokeres and Sesko, I probably would go for Sesko, because the Portuguese league's not even considered one of the top 5 leagues. Germany is.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that there are no good players that come from Portugal. Look at Cristiano Ronaldo. But look at Fabio Vieira.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anthony came from Anthony didn't. Keep going to Anthony.
Red John said about Sesko, listen, his goal output is 1 per 300 minutes for a full season. I don't think it's Ipswich level teams. I think the Bundesliga is stronger than a relegated team in the Premier League. Can I
just answer John? I'm not being hypocritical, because I've acknowledged that Gyokeres has got bigger numbers. He has. I said earlier that apparently he's the Portuguese league's best ever scorer in the history of the league. Right? What I'm saying is that I don't know, because of the league, whether it's going to translate into into the
and
English
he's
league.
Also Red John's also mentioned,
and I also think the style of play. If Gyokeres likes to come in off of the wing, and we want to cross balls in, we do like the headers. We do like to use, crosses and headers. And Sesko seems to be better in that department. He seems to have more of a history of doing that. But I'm not diminishing Gyokeres' goal tally at all.
Right, and he did play for Coventry in the Championship, who very nearly got to the Premier League a couple of seasons ago. And then the Gyokeres went off to Sporting Lisbon.
He played for Brighton. He was at Brighton as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Brighton as well for a couple of games. So I think Red John's saying Gyokeres has probably more experience in the English game and may translate. He's not going to get 50 goals in a season, but if his output would be 40% of that, that's 20 goals.
And I can see why, if you're choosing between those two, you're saying, well, I want a player for today, then Gyokeres does look like the better option, because the numbers. Do you know what I mean? He does have better numbers than Sesko.
I happen to believe, and this is not me sitting on the fence, but I happen to believe whoever we get will be a number 9 who can.
And John says that
goals.
that Sesko would be a project signing, but so was Nicolas Anelka. He didn't do too bad.
Yeah. I think Sesko's been playing quite well with RB Leipzig. Is he the number 1 guy going through RB Leipzig? It looks like RB Leipzig spreads the goals around, much like Arsenal do in general play. So there is the opportunity for Sesko to be. All we want is 5 or 6 players to get 15 plus goals in the Premier League.
I just got his stats up now. Looking at Sesko's stats, 2 seasons playing in the Bundesliga. So the first one, 2023 to 2024, 31 matches, 14 goals, 2 assists. And then the next year, he played a couple of games more, 33 matches, 13 goals, 5 assists.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like Isak numbers.
No.
But if he can do that in his first season, and maybe or a little bit more, and the goals are coming in from somewhere else, because we don't even have a striker that
Well,
I don't know. I mean,
don't
get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. I would love to, if the team spent the money on Gyokeres and he came in and was able to get the same conversions that he's getting in Portugal. Man, I'd love it.
The thing as well, also, is we're comparing Victor Gyokeres is probably 5 or 6 years older than Sesko, and his journey in football is a lot further along than Benjamin.
Very different.
Sesko. Very different. So we're not expecting Sesko to be of that level yet, but could he be that level where if you spend 80 to 90 million now, he could be an Isak in a year or two. He could be an Erling Haaland, maybe not Erling Haaland levels, but he could be close.
Ray, what happens if you get in a little black cab, you put 95 million in it, and you drive to Villa? What happens there?
Aston Villa?
Yep.
What are we picking? 2 players up for 95 million?
One player, right?
Which one? Aaron Rodgers?
You know who we're going there for 95 million?
Not for 95 million to Aston Villa. Ollie Watkins for 40, right? Is that what we're talking about?
Rodgers.
Aaron Rodgers. Is he? That's a lot of money, though. That's a lot of money for that kind of player.
Another thing I just want to say as well, a huge difference between Gyokeres, I think, and Sesko is that Sesko has been playing more as a second striker. So if you want to think of maybe, Thierry Henry being at the tip and Bergkamp coming in just behind, that's not bad numbers. No. But again, is he going to be able to be playing in that position at Arsenal? I don't think so. He'd have to adapt his game, right? He'd have to be playing, as that number 9. Yeah. Maybe that would benefit him. Maybe it won't. I don't know.
Morgan Rogers. And look, I was talking before about having players adapt to your style of play. How good was Dennis Bergkamp? He had 3 or 4 different striking partners, and he made all of them better by his range of passing, the ability to find players: Ian Wright, Thierry Henry, Alan Smith, Kevin Campbell, other players like that as well. BX Gunner said we're 5.5 years under Arteta. By December, we'll be 6 years. That's a long damn time of the same BS. I would tell you that it's not been the same BS because Arsenal have, through the seasons, changed, and we've finished in different positions and played different football in some of those seasons as well. So hasn't been the same thing under Mikel Arteta. It's been progression. And I don't think many of us are in favor of the set. We've leaned into the set pieces too much. I think if you ask Tony, Stan, and I, we'd all probably want to see us be a little bit more free-flowing football going forward, not relying so much on the set pieces. So if Arteta wants to do something for me, it would be to be a little bit more free-flowing going forward, I would say. 16 people in the chat. It's great to have you all here tonight with us on the Thursday Night Forum. So, yeah, Sesko or Gyokeres. Let me know in the chat as well. What
Can
you
I
think.
answer one question? John says, name one big game that Sesko turned up. I can't think of any. Neither can I, because I don't watch him play.
Yeah.
I've only seen like compilations and clips, and I don't watch him. I don't watch the German league. Same
Sesko's away
same for Gyokeres.
of Havertz.
Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I'm a football analyst. This is just my
we're looking at two players here, Stan and Tony, who we need to bring them into Arsenal to step up to another level. You go into the Premier League, you're stepping up to another level. Gyokeres is not going to score 50 goals in the Premier League. Sesko's maybe not going to score 20 in the Premier League. You know,
he didn't look dangerous when we played him, though, did he?
No, but he tore Man City apart, and Man City struggled this season. So there's something there. You know what I mean? And maybe the best thing is for to ask Saliba and Gabriel, what's this player like? Is he worth it? You know what I mean? I think News and Gabriel was quoted as talking about Rodrygo as being a good player that we should go after as well. We'll talk about him a little bit later. Not even the most desperate widows want Sesko, useless bum. Liverpool fans were literally asked, keep Nunez for more season or get Sesko, and they chose Nunez. So I'd like to see that poll. I think they would have changed for Sesko. And we know Nunez is bad. That makes Sesko toilet water. Yeah. So, yeah, listen. But Stan, do you think it's a good tactic, right? It's a good tactic to have both Sesko and Gyokeres as options for Andrea Berta.
Well, that seems to be where the eggs in the basket are being placed between those two players, right? One week it's this one, then the next week it's the other one, then the next week it's this one. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if we don't get either of them and we bring in someone like Ekatike. I don't know, something really left field.
Are we playing one against the other, so we're not being nailed down to a price? Tough to know.
From what I've heard, basically the last 2 weeks.
Do you reckon they would bring both of them in? Though? Do you imagine that they brought both of them in?
I mean, come on, it would be great. It would be great, right?
That would just be like, that would just be.
Well, where would you play them? You'd have to play. Would they play in the same team? You know what I mean?
Maybe at times.
Gyokeres on the left and Sesko through the middle.
But then that would kind of satisfy everybody because you'd be kind of saying, we listened to, we looked at this, we've bought the player that we think is for today, the one with the big numbers, right, Gyokeres, and we've also brought in that player for tomorrow.
Would it be a Lacazette Aubameyang situation again? Would it be?
But why? I mean, you look at a team like City and you look at when they have a bench, right? You look at our bench in the semi-final in the Champions League, and you're looking at players like Butler or Rodrygo on the bench.
Yeah.
But, you look at a team like, I know he's not there now, but just as an example, or you look at a City and they'll have a Marmoush on the bench. Or before that, it was a Julian Alvarez on the bench. Why can't we? That's where you need to get to if you want to win this thing. Do you know what I'm getting at? Where you have got an array of players. And you've got a manager that's rotating, and the players, apart from some positions, they don't know that they're nailed on starters because there's a lot of talent in the squad. That's where we want to. That's where we want to get to. No more of that Cabia and Oladeji on the bench. Those seats need to be taken up with players that are going to get minutes, because then they're not getting minutes, are they? They're you know what I mean? They're going on these like journeys to Paris and all that. They know they ain't playing.
But can't we just get good?
Because we never had anyone else.
Can't we just get
two empty seats, right? Hold on a minute, Tony. You could just leave 2 empty seats, right? You got to put someone in them. But now we want to get to that stage where those seats are filled up by players that you'd be like, they could start. That's where you want to get to.
Yeah.
But
You know what I'm saying?
doesn't Gyokeres and Jonathan David do that for you?
Yeah.
And I
told you I'd take Ollie Watkins and Jonathan David because that's a good use of money. You've got a player for today. Remember, Kai Havertz is still going to get games. Do you know what I mean? If he bought Sesko, do you think that if he bought Sesko this summer, do you think he's starting the first game in the Premier League? No. Kai Havertz is going to start.
Yeah,
Sesko, you know what I mean? If we bought Gyokeres, for me it's 50-50. Gyokeres might start the first game in the season, but there's still a big chance that it could be Kai Havertz. Right? Could be a bedded in thing, who knows? But Havertz is still in there, whether you like it or not. He's still in there. He's one of the highest paid players at the club, if not the. He's still in there. And as everyone's saying, he's bulked himself up. He's got himself bigger.
Yeah.
Okay, that might take a bit of his pace away, but
here we go again. Mikel Arteta's been quoted as saying that he's going to start the season with Kai Havertz, irrespective, right? Irrespective of who he's bringing in. Yeah, I think he's been quoted as saying that. You know.
Well, I don't think you can say something like that because you could have a pre-season and the person that you bring in, you know, it's just like everyone's in training is going like, who's this guy? Look what he's doing. Yeah. Those things can happen, right? So you can't nail that on. You should go out and say, like, we're starting again with a clean sheet. It's pre-season. Everyone's got to earn that. Do you know what I mean? That's what you do. I say you don't say, oh yeah, such and such is definitely starting before he's even kicked the ball. Naive.
Mikel Arteta's got to get better.
That's naive. That's naive.
He's got to get better with the press as well, Stan. He started out his career with Arsenal as the manager or the coach,
Hang on. You see, Red John? We're not Arteta-ins here. We're balanced, right? I just ripped him apart there. Yeah. We do it a lot on here.
I'm also going to say that Mikel Arteta needs to not say too much to the press.
Says too much.
He says way too much. In the first couple of seasons, he was very tight-lipped, never really gave them anything to talk about.
He makes himself a meme sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Why would you go out in front of the press and say after the PSG getting knocked out? Yeah, we were the better team. I thought that we were the better team. And not only do I think that, people off of their bench told me.
Yeah.
What you do is, right, because here's the thing, right, you'd think that after 5 years, you understand how the media works, how social media works, and they clip stuff. You play it safe. Well, you should have gone out and gone, you know what? You know, we gave it our best. I'm really proud of the lads for getting us to the semi-final. But, you know, we weren't up to much more than that. But you know what? We're going to go away. We're going to regroup. We're going to work harder, and we're going to try and come back next year and do better. Say something like that, and you know, I hope that and in my opinion, you also say in my opinion as well. I think that PSG could be the ones to go and win it. So then you're kind of saying we went out to the team that's going to win. You edge your bet, right? And then if you want to go back into the changing room where there's no reporters in it, and it's just your team sitting there in their little cubicles, and you want to say, lads, you know what? You know, I thought you were the better team, and you want to boost them that way. Do that behind closed doors, but don't go out and do that in front of the press because you look naive, you look like an idiot, and you give sound bites. Play it safe, you know. That's exactly how it. All right, Mel. Thanks for joining. But that's how you do it. You know what I'm getting at. Well, you know, I'm so proud that we got this far. Pity we couldn't get any further. Proud of the boys, but we're going to come back, and you know, we really want to do well in this competition, and you know, we're going to come back next year and try and do better.
He needs some of that media training.
And PSG, I think, you know, in my opinion, from what I've seen, I think they could win this. So you went out to the team that's going to win.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you and good night. And then you go behind closed doors. And if you want to tell the players that they were better, because you're your wife bigger, do that.
Exactly.
If you want to give them a lift.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
If I can come up with this shit, so can he.
You keep it in the dressing room. George Graham was famous for keeping everything in the dressing room, telling the players. He even told them, you know, what was going to happen in 1989.
He makes himself look like a sore loser by saying what he said, and he makes himself look arrogant. And he gets opened up now to having these thrown at him by doing that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's naive. It's stupid.
Yeah.
Doesn't help anybody.
Defend your team. I think he sees it as defending his players, but he's got to do it in the most generic. He's got to do it in the most generic terms.
One of your biggest jobs as a football manager, or even I would go as far as to say is the Arsenal football manager, if you've got like a list of the 10 commandments, one of those 10 commandments must be, do not ever make the club into a laughingstock. And he's done that. Do not make the club into a joke, sort of thing. You know, don't give. And he's done that. He's committed that sin. That's what he's done. He's given ammunition to everybody to really take the piss. And what makes me upset about it was that in the next game, when he's had time to reflect on it, and it's been a period of time, they brought it up again. And instead of brushing it under the carpet and moving on or whatever, he doubled down on it and said, "Yeah, we were." He doubled down, and I'm like, "You're an idiot, mate. Has nobody been in your ear and told you that you shouldn't have done that? And if they have, then you're just stubborn."
Yeah,
you know what I mean, you're doubling down on it.
100%. But because I'm not making excuses for him, but I can see where he's coming from, because we, as Red John said here, seeing the way Inter played against PSG, if we had beat PSG in that second leg, we would have won the Champions League. And that's how close we are. And I contend in this that you've seen it through the years. You have to be in this competition 3, 4, 5, 6 years before you can break through and win it. And that's what happened with Man City. It's happened with PSG.
And can I say as well that if you look at the Europa League and you look at the Europa Conference, obviously they're considered lower tiers of European trophies. But now Tottenham and Chelsea especially, right, with a young team, whether you think the Europa Conference League is a shitty tournament or whatever, that team now has the experience of going through in a European competition, having to get on an aeroplane and play in grounds in different countries that they've never had that before. And they've managed to go through that and win it. That makes them stronger now because of that experience. Whereas we haven't got that yet. Do you know what I'm saying? We, as good as some of our players may be or whatever, we don't have that confidence, that experience that Chelsea has. Even though it's an inferior competition, they still had to play those games. They still had to the manager still had to work his tactics. They still had to travel to far off lands in front of fans they don't know and get results. Yeah, and they did. And, our rivals, Tottenham, have just gone and done the same. Yeah. They now have that experience.
At a lower level, I take what you're saying. At a lower level, playing teams who are not of the level that we've been playing, because it is a lower tier European competition. I understand what you're saying.
You get what I'm coming from, right?
You're going through the difficult moments.
You can only beat what's in front of you. You can only beat what's in front of you.
In every competition, you're going to come up against a team that you're losing a goal. You're down a goal too, and probably this happened to those teams. Dark times, but you had the mental fortitude. You had the teamwork and the ability to work together to overcome that, and that's the experience that's going to stand them in good stead moving forward. So Chelsea should improve this coming season. Tottenham should improve this coming season.
And Tiger and Guna says, but we've experienced beating Real Madrid.
Exactly.
But when was the last time that we lost to Real Madrid?
Can't remember.
I'll sit and wait. We always do well against Real Madrid. I'm not discounting that. What I'm trying to say is, as a team, that young Chelsea team, because a lot of young players in there, have now experienced going through a tournament and winning it. And you can't beat that flavour that it gives you, even though it's a shit fucking tournament. But it gives you an edge. It now gives you that. I want more of that. And if I'm going to be in the Champions League, I want that one. Do you know what I mean? It gives you something. And our players haven't experienced that. The furthest that we have got. I mean, someone gave me a stat the other day. It was something like, in the time that Mikel Arteta has been our manager, if you put together all of the trophies per season that we have the opportunity to win, the League Cup, the FA Cup, the Premier League, and the Champions League, or the Europa League, depending on what one you're in, 4 trophies, he's had 25 attempts. We've had 25 shots, right? And we've never got to the final in any of them. We've never won the Premier League, and we've never got to the final in any of the other competitions. That, you know, when you break that stat down, it is a bit of an indictment for me.
Yeah,
that is a bit of an indictment.
So what he needs,
but then you look at managers that have had like a fraction of the time, and not only have they got to finals, they've won the final. He's not even been there or thereabouts. And
it's gotta change.
you know what I mean? As much as I'm not saying that that I want him sacked, I'm going to be honest in certain things. And for me, that's a glaring fucking You know what I mean? That's a bad win percentage. That's whatever you want to call it. It's a terrible stat. That he's had 25 bites of the apple. 25, right? And how many bites of the apple did Ange have? And he won something. Think of it that way. How many?
Five.
We've had 25 opportunities to like do it, and we've not even got to finals, man.
Yeah,
that's not good.
Give him a good backup goalkeeper. Give him maybe another defender.
We've had the goalkeepers, right?
Give him a number 6. Give him a left winger. Give him a striker. Give him a
As John said, charity shields notwithstanding.
Charity shield. You know, I generally don't count charity shields, but when people want to count charity shields to boost their argument, they will do that. We were literally 90 minutes away from winning the Champions League. We didn't have enough going forward against PSG, and you know we didn't have the answers for them, and we didn't take the chances.
This is another thing.
We were also right. We were also 180 minutes away from not being in the Champions League.
Not being in it. Yeah. Well, Tony, I think we would have dropped a lot of points to drop out of the top 5. We're probably 7 or 8 points away from top 5.
You have to remember 6 teams are qualifying.
Yeah.
Also, as well, people have been, transfers as well. So people have been talking about, was it Barcola from PSG? Barcola from PSG, he's been kept out the side by Guehi and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, you know what? If I'm Barcola and I'm looking at my future, I'm like, well, I just played Arsenal over 2 legs and they didn't show me nothing. They didn't show me nothing. They didn't even put the ball in the back of the net. You know what I mean? We didn't do anything.
So you wouldn't go there?
No, what I'm saying is, right, if I was a PSG player, any PSG player, and you know what I mean, I might not be watching all of the Arsenal games, but I've just played them over 2 legs and didn't see nothing.
Yeah, but I'm not getting my game. I'm not getting my game at PSG. I'm going to go to another team.
Yeah,
and
okay.
You might make the difference at Arsenal.
But what if there's a team also interested in you from Italy or Spain? Do you know what I mean? And they've just won their league, or do you know what I'm getting at? Or you face them in the Champions League and they really put you to the sword. What I'm trying to say is, right, we didn't do nothing in those 2 legs. Yes, Donnarumma pulled out some good saves, though. I have to give him that. But we couldn't find a way past that, right? So, but then again, I didn't think Thomas Frank would go to Tottenham, but he did.
We're still stand where if French players had their druthers, they would go to Arsenal because of the history of French players.
Wenger. The legacy of Wenger and Thierry Henry.
Well, it goes beyond that.
But now you've got to think that if you're a young Frenchman in this day and age, You don't have a Thierry Henry on your poster, as a poster on your wall anymore, or a Robert Perez or a Patrick Vieira. You're probably looking at someone like Mbappe,
Yeah.
right?
Or
Or
Koscielny.
or Dembele.
Or Koscielny.
So what? So you're looking at Barcelona and looking at Madrid,
Patrice
as where you're trying to get your career to go to. Do you know what I mean? I think that maybe that Arsenal, Arsene Wenger, Thierry Henry, that's only alive with people our age. I'm 56. That still burns bright with me. But there's a lot of people that are supporting Arsenal now that came in after that or near the end of the Arsene Wenger. And do you know what I mean? For them, they're more like Mesut Ozil, Santi Cazorla, Alexis Sanchez. They look at them as their greats. So I think era's changed, and I think that thing about the French connection and that, I think there's not a lot of that gas left in the tank. There might still be a little bit, but within another 10 years, no. It'll be teams like Madrid, Barcelona,
If Sesko flops in the Premier League, I'm blaming Arteta because he knew the numbers that Sesko outputs or puts up. Yeah. Whatever happens, we'll start the season.
We just can't afford another Nicolas Pepe situation. We can't afford to go down that road of laying out a load of dough. It don't work out. I mean, we kind of knew that Declan Rice was a safe bet, right? Come from the league. But
Declan Rice was a very, very
very safe bet, right? Yeah.
Secure.
Good. You get good odds. You get good odds. But we can't afford to do an Anthony.
Fit. He would be fit most of the time. He had a little bit of an issue at the start of the season.
Hang on, and can I say, Cazorla was a great player, but what I'm saying is about the eras. Do you know what I'm getting at? The eras. And we're talking about the French thing. Cazorla's from Spain, right? Fabregas is from Spain. So you could see a connection there. What I'm saying, we were just talking about that French connection. But sorry, Ray, go on.
No problem. So I think I'm comfortable with whoever we pick. If it's Andrea Berta, he's got Gyokeres and he's got Sesko.
Oh, I never asked you the question, if I may.
Yeah.
I told you that if I had to pick out of Gyokeres and Sesko, I went for Sesko. What about you two?
I would go for Gyokeres, honestly. Why?
You think he's more of a player for today?
I think he's just a goal machine. I think he would score the goals that we need to set ourselves apart. Let's not forget, Stan, and Tony might not think the same way we're thinking. Last season, I think it was 6 to 10 games that the referees deliberately manipulated the flow of the game.
Yeah, over ref. You're over ref. I agree.
Yeah. 6 to 10 games. This is Premier League manipulation of the outcomes of games to handicap said team. And Arsenal was the target, have been the target over a few seasons now. I'm waiting for that to switch to another team so I can see travesty after travesty happen to a Liverpool or a Man City.
Do you know why it happens? Did you know why it happens, Ray?
Why?
As an Arsenal fan, how long have you been watching Arsenal, Ray?
30 some years, since 87.
How many times have you seen 3 illegal throw-ins by the same player in one game? That being Benny White or Benny Blanco.
Benny White.
Yeah.
I see a lot of players with illegal throw-ins. They seem to let that go a lot. That happens a lot.
But 3 of them, right?
Yeah, I've seen.
How many times do you watch a football game when a player's taking a corner and the camera's pointed down where the flag is and the D, and they put the ball down? It's nowhere near the chalk or the paint.
Well, the circumference of the ball is breaking the circle.
I used to bunk off at geometry, so I wouldn't know.
I never understood why football is like the only sport where the outside of a line still counts. It's like the inside of a line
Uh-huh.
counts.
But so,
Yeah.
right, hold on. Wait, you'd go for Gyokeres.
I go for Gyokeres just because I think
Gyokeres.
he can score the goals that can set us apart from any kind of referee situation that we're going to get ourselves into with red cards. I think our players need to be a little bit more disciplined as well, because last season we got into a couple of heated situations that were probably in our own control, right? Declan Rice doesn't need to flick that ball away, for one, right? Miles Lewis-Skelly doesn't need to kick the player.
No, but
in-
when Declan Rice kicked the ball away, if you watch it again, the opposition player, he puts the ball on down and rolls it towards Declan Rice. He doesn't put the ball down and make it stationary. He rolls the ball like he's doing some kind of bowling. And Declan Rice is probably thinking, no, you're taking the kick further back from where you are. And he's trying to knock the ball back.
So those teams always roll the ball.
It's not like the player just placed the ball down and Declan Rice ran up and booted it.
I think the referee...
He physically moved the ball towards Declan Rice. And Declan Rice is probably kicking it back. He tapped it with his heel as if to say, no, you're taking it from there.
Yeah.
What happens? Oh, you kick the ball away. That's against the rules. Yeah, but I was trying to... No. None of that. No trying to pull the wool over. No trying to pull the wool over my eyes, like the letters that the Premier League team wrote. Don't try and use the dark arts on me, like in the letters that the other Premier League clubs. I'm booking you. I don't want to seem to be doing a favour to Arsenal. There you go. End of story. I mean, that's not a conspiracy. That's not X-Files. That's what happened. The player rolled the ball towards Declan Rice. He moved the ball towards him. Declan Rice didn't just kick the ball away. It was moved in his direction, and with his heel, his ankle, he tapped the ball back. I mean, that's what happened, right?
Yeah.
Am I lying? Am I lying?
You can't tell me.
No, you're right.
There's been thousands of times you've seen a player roll the ball, and he decides not to take the free kick. Then another guy comes, he picks the ball up, rolls it again.
But Tony, in the same game when the whistle went, one of the opposition, he didn't just tap the ball with his ankle, he hoofed it. He punted the ball. And the referee blew again, and they took their free kick, and there was no card issued. In the same game. So what I'm trying to say is, it's like, I'm not asking for Arsenal to get favours, because that would make it boring. I'm just asking for consistency. In the same fucking game. Is that too much to ask? I'm not asking for a lot. If you're going to ref a game, then ref it consistently for 90 minutes. It's not like I'm even pointing out someone kicking the ball away on the same weekend in another match, which ironically also fucking happened, and no booking. So there's two examples, one in another match, one in our match. We're the ones that get booked when we do it for tapping it back to the... I mean, come on, man. Come on. It's not like Declan Rice ran up where the guy put the ball down and he went, poof! You're like, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, that's not what happened. So I'm not having it. I'm not having it. You know, I just want to be treated like everybody else. Is that too much to ask? I don't know.
But everybody's inconsistent, Stan. They're horrible.
But Tony, there's a reason. But Tony, what I'm saying to you is that there's a reason for it, right? And I've said it many times on this
There's
broadcast.
something behind it.
The season before, it's a fact. A number of Premier League clubs wrote to the PGML. They took time to sit down and dip their pen into ink and write a fucking letter complaining about us, that the referees were being hoodwinked, that we were pulling one over on them. They wanted to make sure that weren't happening. They didn't want to be seen to be doing that. That's why every little thing that we did was hammered. When was the last time when two players go up for a header and there's a clash of heads, one of them gets sent off? William Saliba got sent off for a clash of heads. He should have had medical attention.
Yeah.
His head got hit as well. He didn't run up to someone and headbutt him. Two people went up for a ball. They clashed heads. They need medical
what's
attention. Yeah, our player's the one that gets fucking penalised and sent off. Do me a favour. Come on.
Watch him extend his head.
Oh, hold on. Slow down. Special person's just
Extended
popped
his
into the comments. I've not seen in a while. Paul Pot. Glad you could join us, Paul.
Paul Pat.
Paul Pot. He's a dictator of a country somewhere, isn't he?
Yep.
Paul Pot.
Don't get me started again on that stuff.
He's a dictator, but I'm glad he's taken this time out from dictating to join us. So welcome, Paul Pot. Anyway, that's what I'm saying, right? You know what I mean? Even what made it stick out to me is as well, I'm watching like shows with pundits and pundits that usually go after Arsenal or banter them, don't have any dog in the race. And when they're looking at decisions and they're saying things like, well, I've never seen that given for that before. This is weird. And they're saying, yeah, Arsenal seem to be getting really over-reffed. That makes you think, well, hold on a minute. This is a guy that usually is just diving into us. Do you know what I mean? Even they're like going, well, this is because it's ruining the game. So there you go. It's not X-Files. That's it, Cambodia. That's where he's from. So Gary out there. That's where Gary. I've not seen Gary for a while. That's where he's been out there.
I've been chilling with Gary.
Defense. I reckon Gary's probably like the foreign secretary in real life to Cambodia and works under Pol Pot. He's in the cabinet.
Boy.
I want a cabinet job. I could be your Elon.
Stan.
I do 130 days and then we can have a big row. Gary's vice chancellor. Sorry. Anyway,
I had
38 years, Tiger and Gunner. I think it's 38 years since '87.
Stan, between having a Vietnam War class and just current events class, I found out at the time you could get a kilo of marijuana for $2. So that's 2.4 pounds for $2. So I wanted to get a giant boat and go there and bring back tons of ganja.
I'm going to agree with Red John again. I'm agreeing with Red John a lot tonight, but yeah, Gary is definitely the Vader to Pol Pot's Palpatine. Good. Anyway, so yeah, but before, because I've got to go soon, but for me, talking about the transfer window, the big one, I don't know if it's going to happen. It could be one of those ones that drags on and drags on and drags on. I would love us to get Rodrygo. Yeah. Love it. And do you remember?
Thanks for being here, Reddy.
Do you remember a few months ago we were talking and I said to you, I was reading an article about how Mikel Arteta was talking about how much he loves Rodrygo. And that if they got Rodrygo, they would make him like the face of the club. He would be like and this was like months ago. Yeah. It seems to be panning out. It seems to be like that. And I think that if that should happen, it's going to happen a bit later, one of them later ones, because he's already playing out of position. He plays on the left. That's his favoured position. He's already got Vinicius Jr. playing there. You've already got Mbappe. He likes to drift out that way. Jude Bellingham is left of midfield. I think that if we got Rodrygo, he would have the impact that Alexis Sanchez had. Alexis Sanchez, great player, but being overshadowed in Barcelona because of some of the other names that are there. Still a great talent, but, overshadowed. And I think Rodrygo is that man at Madrid at the moment. A great talent. But, you got Vinny Jr. there, right? Do you know what I mean? Vinny Jr. is playing in his position. Maybe at some point, Rodrygo wants to step out of the shadow. And instead of being that small fish in a big pond, he wants to be that big fish in a smaller pond and have it all around him where he can showcase everything. And I think that is the conversation and the play that's being made towards him. Because he's already won it. It's not like he's already won it all with Madrid, right? He's accomplished it all. But, you know, if you can massage that ego and say, like, you could be the main man. I'd love to get Rodrygo. That's a best-in-class signing.
Since you're leaving, Stan.
That's up there with an Isak signing for me. That's up there with an Isak.
Wow.
Who else would you get as a winger? Because you need backup for Saka. We don't have that second person.
Backup for Saka, right? I think Nwari's got to be the backup for Saka. As much as if Gary's still listening, he's not going to want to hear that. And Nwari should come on more and get more minutes this coming season as well.
But if you did buy a Rodrygo though, and you got rid of, say, a Trossard, Martinelli can play on the right as well. You know, Renari can play on the right as well. But I think that the club feels that Renari is better more in the central position, in an Odegaard position. But he can play there on the right. You know, we've seen him play on the right, and he's contributed.
So you like Rodrygo, but I wouldn't hate a Semenyo, an Eze, or a Anthony Gordon on that left either.
Here's the thing, though. I thought that about Anthony Gordon, but when you actually look at his numbers, the same numbers. He's on the Martinelli level, and that's what we're supposed to be improving on. And as I said earlier, I said that I don't care who we sell. I try not to. There were times I stopped attaching myself to players after the Bergkamp Henry era. Don't get me wrong, and there's players that I've liked, but since then I've never attached myself. I'm like, sell whoever the fuck you want, but whoever comes in has to be an upgrade because you're improving the team.
Yeah.
And for me, as much as I do like Anthony Gordon, but his numbers are Martinelli numbers. When I looked them up, I was like, fuck, I didn't know that.
I'll have to check that out. It doesn't. When you think about it,
there's no difference. There's not much of a difference. And I was like, fuck. That's why sometimes the eye test isn't what you think it is, right?
And maybe Anthony Gordon is the assist. He's more of an assist guy, you know, rather than scoring.
Let's bring him out. I'll just find out. I'm going to bring him up now.
Semenyo, as I said.
So here we go. Anthony Gordon is his career at Newcastle, right? Started in 2022, 2023. He played 16 games. Maybe some of those were off the bench, who knows? But he only scored 1 goal. No assists. The next season, 2023, 2024, 35 games. So he's getting into the thick of it more. 11 goals, 10 assists.
So that's good. Good return.
That's not too shabby. You know, because the assists bring that up, right? Now you're looking at, what's that? That's 31 goal involvements in 35 games, right? No, 21. Sorry, 21 goal involvements. That's not too shabby.
Yeah.
But then the season just gone, he played a game less, 34, 6 goals, 5 assists.
A third, back to 1 and 3. Yeah.
Let's bring up Martinelli.
So good seasons 1 and 2 for him. Goal involvements. Bad season.
For Martinelli.
Yeah.
Going to 2022, 2023, this is like his 4th season with us. 4 seasons in, 36 games. He scored 15 goals and got 5 assists. Right? Gordon's never got to that, right? But then the season after that, 2023, 2024, 1 game less, 35 games, 6 goals, 4 assists. And the thing about that anomaly is that the one that I read out with the high number, 15 and 5, the season before that, he got 6 and 6. So he kind of like 6 and 6, then he had a good season, then he was kind of back to where he was again. And then the season just gone, 33 matches, 8 goals, 4 assists. So he's not really that difference between him and Gordon. Do you know what I mean? Really?
Yeah. John says he thinks we can get away with Sesko. So this is the thing: you get a striker who is decent, but you're going to need to add something on the left wing who's a little bit more potent, like a Rodrygo. Semenyo has had a good season, That's a player I like from Bournemouth, Premier League ready. He's had some good stats this season. I feel like you're typing in his deets there now, Stan. Going off memory, something like 20 goal involvements, 14 maybe goals and 8 assists maybe in something like 35 games for
So this
Semenyo.
season just gone for Semenyo, 37 games, 11 goals, 5 assists.
Yeah.
Season before that, 8 goals, 2 assists.
Yeah. So he's taken a definite step forward.
Yeah.
I think he's got something about him. He's got some speed. He's got some pace in his game, and he's putting some end product to it as well in terms of goals and assists. Opinions on Wissa and Bemo?
Essay,
Yeah, both.
for me. Essay.
Eze is good, excellent player.
Last season, 34 matches, 8 and 8. Season before that, 27 matches, 11 and 4. Yeah. Season before that, 10 and 4.
So he's really stepped out. Michael Olise was there the season before he went to Bayern Munich.
Olise,
and Eze's really stepped up in the absence of Michael Olise gone. Going over to Brentford, Red John talks about Wissa and Mbeumo both on 20 goals for the Premier League for Brentford.
Is Mbeumo going to United?
So
Mbeumo's going to United,
I think Mbeumo will go to Manchester United. They already have Cunha there. I don't think the Manchester United are going to buy Gyokeres if they have Mbeumo and Cunha there also. There's no way they can afford a whole new forward line of 3 players. So that's why I think Gyokeres, he's there for us if we can just push through what the president of Sporting Lisbon wants to do, which is be a little bit greedy,
Yeah.
So anyway, Stan, you got to go. We'll wrap it up here.
My dinner's on the table.
All right, man. Your dinner's where?
On the table.
On the table. And you know where it's going next if you don't get in there?
Yeah, the missus has got her hands. My dinner's on the table. My missus has got her hands on her hips.
All right. You better go.
So anyway, listen, thanks for having me on. Thanks, Ray. Good to talk to you again. Thanks, Tony. Good to chat to you. And thanks for everyone that turned up. Thanks everyone that turned up in the chat.
Tony knows what your missus said. Saliba was always going to play for Arsenal, Tony.
Exactly. Always going to happen. So cheers, lads. Have a good one. And I'll see you all on the next one.
We'll wrap this up in the next 10 or 15 minutes here. Tony and I will take it out. And opinions on Wissa and Mbeumo, both of 20 goals. Yeah, I told you, Tony, last August, I liked Brian Mbeumo. He doesn't what is it about him? He doesn't seem like a top-notch player, but he gets the numbers. And the same with Yohan Wissa as well. 20 goals each for them this season. The main point of Brentford's attack, and probably if you're going to look at Brentford's goals for this season, both of them would probably account for over half of their goals this season. So they've been really, really top-notch this season. Brian Mbeumo is going to move. Probably, I wanted him at Arsenal, not going to lie. But Bukayo Saka makes it difficult for players on the right-hand side to come to Arsenal. So
that's right. That's why you go to Tom's former buddy, Rafinha, which can play any of the 3 places.
Yeah, and getting Rafinha from Barcelona, that's not going to be easy either, Do
you know what, Ray? It's worth the effort to try.
Tiger and Gunner, that would be funny if Ange went to Brentford. And Thomas Frank, all of these managers, Tony, they seem to think that they can go to Tottenham and be successful. Now, I know Stan was talking about Conte and Mourinho being top-notch managers at Tottenham. I just feel like sometimes the fit is right like a like a pod in your ear. The fit has to be right for Thomas Frank to go to Tottenham, and that could be the right fit for them. You know, the entire chat is talking to me, says Red John. Angie's going for that Brentford job. One other thing we have to talk about, and we've talked about Gyokeres, we talked about Sesko, and it's too early yet to know um, what's going to happen in the striking position. Um, Andrea Berta has got possibilities for both of the players and has done work on both of the players. There will be some more negotiations probably as things progress with the president of Sporting Lisbon and maybe the agents of both players as well. Um,
But
as I,
who do you want to have a bigger say? Do you want Arteta to have a bigger say, or do you want Berta to have a
I
bigger say?
want Andrea Berta to have the bigger say because I believe, and I think you will agree with me on this one, that he has been brought in with with the intention of guiding Mikel Arteta to the right players, especially in the forward positions, to be
Yeah,
able to get over the hump. As we've watched Arsenal struggle to get past Newcastle over two legs um, uh, in the Carabao Cup, struggle with more difficulty to get over a really, really good PSG team. Where if we had taken our chances, and that's what Arteta's talking about, you have to say that PSG were the better team than us because they beat us at the end of the day over two legs.
but
But
but you
but
seen
Arteta's
exactly.
looking Arteta's looking at Declan Rice missing a header and Odegaard having his shot saved, where we had chances against PSG early doors in the second leg. Go
I,
ahead, Tony.
I I said this 2 weeks ago when we were talking about this, and the difference was if PSG had a half a chance, they took it. And guess what? It ended up in the back of a net more
Yeah,
times than not.
yeah,
Eh, And you see that with other games that Arsenal did. It's like you see other teams just barely getting this chance, especially why Gabriel was out because he communicates good. And
yeah,
to me, that's the difference. You've got to have that clinical ability in you.
yeah,
But
yeah,
to me, you have to go for a player for now. You can't try to hedge your bets and say, "Oh, we want this player for a future."
yeah,
If you want a player for a future, you still gotta buy one for now.
yeah, yeah. Um, and so I think you agree with Stan, and I think you agree with me that it's got to be Victor Gyokeres from Sporting Lisbon.
Yep.
And we have to appease the agent. We have to appease the president as well and get it over the line. Um,
That's why you give them like two thirds of a amount they want this year, then do the other third
yeah,
next year.
I
That's the
think
way team. That's the way deals have been kind of going lately. The bigger ones is
I,
over two
I,
years.
Tony,
You can
and
front load it.
I think it's very difficult right now because this summer we have not very many strikers available, and so
They're all available, right? It's just
well, yeah, but the
press the
price
right buttons.
they're
The
not
right
they're
buttons.
they're not available at the right price. They're available at a elevated price, which you
But
said coming second in the Premier League and being in the semi-final of the Champions League brings you something like 288 million.
well, because in the Premier League, it was 188 million we got for finishing second. Then the last number I seen on the Champions League was 100 million. It probably ended up higher than that because you had the semifinal and I think the quarterfinal was added on after that too. But going into, I think it was the quarterfinal is right at
Yeah.
95 million, so you have to figure it went a little bit higher than that.
Yeah. All right. So I think we've covered a lot of things. One other thing we maybe might get at some point in the season is Crystal Palace's defender, Mark Guehi, has been linked as well to come make
Oh,
the trip from Sellers Park all the way
why
from
are we
Sellers
looking at?
Park to the Emirates.
We're looking at the wrong side of a ball if we're going to Sellers Park, right?
Yeah. Um, Listen, and the Arsenal fans getting nervous, okay, because Liverpool are getting Verts, they've got Frimpong, they're getting Kirkes. I do believe the Liverpool may have an issue with their goalkeeper. Allison has only played 28 games, Premier League games, each of the last two seasons. There will be a period where he will be injured for 8 to 10 games this season. And it remains to be seen if the goalkeeper they've brought in, the Georgian goalkeeper, is going to be good enough for him to step in. Um, Verts is one player who they are very very excited and gassed about, but they're paying a hell of a lot of money for one player, and you can only play that one player in one position. You can't play three positions on the field. The two fullbacks will be good. Maybe those fullbacks can get. We can get behind. Players can get behind those fullbacks, and Liverpool will give up some chances as well because probably what they're going to do is those two fullbacks are going to push on Tony, and one of the midfielders will drop in. So I think that's what Arne Slot might do. Pep Guardiola continues to buy players, and I think Chelsea will continue to progress as well, along with Newcastle. So it's becoming a very, very competitive Premier League once again.
It wasn't competitive last year.
It was not competitive last season because of the injuries to Arsenal and the transition
Well,
of
well,
Pep's team.
yeah, but Pep's team was absolutely garbage to
Yes.
start with
Well,
until after Christmas.
that had to be, but Tony, that had to be because of 4 seasons of playing at the top level, right?
I don't know. I just don't think they.
It's hard to keep going. It's hard to keep going and winning things. You win 4 in a row, and listen, I am not really respecting their achievements because of the way that they have gone about those things and assembled their side. I believe that they're circumventing the rules when they do that. But
They've done it before, but this is more something that's common all clubs do. I don't think it's. I think that's why you haven't heard much about it lately. Just,
yeah,
it's kind of like the Patriots. It was the first year when they got in trouble for the Spygate, but everybody filmed the other teams practice.
hmm
And yet you had Dallas, whose coach said, I didn't understand why we got those. They didn't help us any, but it's something we looked at and got.
yeah. Um, let's address what I said here because Red John thinks Pep fell off because he sold all of the set piece takers, sold Mahrez, Alvarez, Kevin De Bruyne, injured significant part of the season. I think he also persisted in players of the ilk of Doku, who I do not rate as being good enough for Man City. Um,
But
he
he
There was
recently,
injuries to Rodri, and Foden did not have the season that he had the previous season.
but why are we even having this conversation? I thought last season was supposed to be his
Well,
last season. He just doesn't want to go out looking that bad of the Premier League.
yeah, all the players are good cross, and I don't think it was just about crossing to Holland or giving him the service. I think there was more to it. Foden and Doku can't do it. What happened to Jack Grealish as well? They really needed a player, and Jack Grealish stayed on the bench. Marmoush is literally Salah 2.0. Yeah, well, I wonder if he's going to start scoring goals. So Marmoush will be an insane player for the future. Marmoush is the next Salah.
Ray's having fun talking about his second favorite Premier League team.
Tony, thank you for joining tonight. Well, I think we'll leave it there. It's getting late, right? We made it to over 2.5 hours. The Thursday night forum is one where we do usually take our time and talk things through and get.
Because it's in my contract, Ray. Remember?
It's in your contract. Yes.
3 hours.
Where is Gary's on the West Coast? Alonso, are you going to send the link to Tony? Are you going to send the link to Alonso?
I almost did a second ago.
You almost did a second ago.
Yeah, we'll see if we can catch a fish.
All right. Tiger and Gunner, great show. Listen, these are the times where things are not happening for Arsenal. Maybe we look at the pieces that are happening. Kepa is in for 5 million. We've secured Gabriel Maghalaes. We've extended his contract. We'll go through the starred comments here. Gabriel Maghalaes.
Can you say I was right, Ray?
What?
Can you say that I was right when I said Gabriel was our best defender?
Yes, I think it's been borne. I think it's been borne out. What happened is, we saw a Rolls Royce of a defender, and we overlooked the bread and butter defender.
And one thing that doesn't get mentioned, I think Saliba's up to 4 penalties given away.
Look at that. We have breaking news, okay? From David Ornstein. Sesko to Arsenal. Here we go.
Man.
The only problem is that Ornstein doesn't say, here we go. It's usually Fabrizio Romano who says that. So,
Maybe they changed partners.
Is this David Orn Romano?
It might be.
Could
full
be.
pot.
Fake news. Fake. Paul Pot, come on now. We know more than that. Definitely trolling. Let's get through a couple of starred comments. As we were going through, I did put a couple of starred comments in here. Stephen, who joined us earlier in the show, that's a backward step for Frank, Thomas Frank. The management at the top is a disaster. I picked them to be no higher than 12th. I think they'll get them into the top half of the table, 10th, 9th, 8th, something like that. Definitely can be in the area of a Brighton or a Bournemouth next season.
They had a ton of injuries, and now they're getting the injection of the Champions League money. So I think I'll be even better than that.
Rudy said, I was fortunate enough to be at Kieran Tierney's last game in Southampton. Mad how we've let him go for free. I hate to say it, but, because he's a good servant to the club, and he had a lot of injuries in his time at Arsenal, that we have decided to let him go for free so that he could go back to his childhood team, Glasgow Celtic.
I don't think Uncle Artie ever fancied him because he's a defender.
Yeah, he's probably the most traditional. Tony, probably the most traditional left back that we had at the club. You know what I mean? As a fullback.
But other closest is Timber.
Timber
doesn't much go past the halfway line.
Yeah. A word about Kieran Tierney. It was great to have him come to the club. He, at a time when we were really needing a player, he brought us a solidity to the defense, and he brought us a player. He brought us as a player, a no nonsense player, right? And didn't care about what weather conditions there was at all. Um, Alonso, put your thumbs up if you want me to bring you in live or afterwards. Live, okay. Alonso is entering the stage.
And for stage right, Alonso.
When are we going to
Alright.
talk? Hello, Alonso. When are we going to talk about the elephant in the room, Saliba's contract?
I thinking about like these rumors, right? And it's like, well, we had a player who wants to go to Real Madrid. I've heard that. I've also heard that um, Miles Lewis could want to go to Real Madrid as well. Which to me, why would you want to go to a club that you just beat in Champions League football? And anyway.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, I think Saliba should be next, as well as Saka. I remember whenever Tony Tiger said, "Oh yeah, he still wants to play in France," and they're good. They're never going to try to Arsenal, but
Tony.
it's worked out so far, and I think maybe you have guys like himself and Gabriel Maghalaes, um, who I admittedly said I was wrong about his defending. It was
Yep.
about bringing a proper left back to protect him, and vice versa. Um, so Gabriel Maghalaes could be wrong. Um, I'm sure Tony Tiger will be ecstatic about me admitting about I was wrong. But yeah, they have a good partnership, and I think once we get some depth, and I think you've seen QBR take his place very well. Maghalaes when he was hurt, so. That being said, we're very lucky to have both of them, and we want to stay here. Like
Mhm.
I think everyone regular had mentioned that how important it meant to him to have his armband in some games, and it showed. And he worked hard at being who player he is, and also the man he is as well. Because at the time he was at Arsenal, I believe it was David Luiz that was on his team as well. So you didn't have a lot of Brazilians at that time helping him out, and so he's kind of had to be there by himself for the most part. And then you had Martinelli, then Jesus, and then you had Jorginho, who I believe is half Brazilian. So it took time for him to get adjusted as an Arsenal player, but he's coming really good, and I think him and Saliba have a very unique partnership to where there's a lot of hype between Saliba, and I think Regulegs had to either get better or at least um, or he was not going to be there for long.
Yeah.
So I think they complement each other very well. I think Saliba wants to be here, as well as um, Miles Lewis Kelly. So I think if the big clubs want you, or at least they try to get you, that means we're doing something right at Arsenal.
Yeah. Huge, right? Um, why can't we at least hijack Mwembo or Johan Visa? These two players scored 20 goals in the Premier League each last season. Rodrygo's one signing, which would be a threat to my bank balance when it comes to Arsenal. Yeah. Um, and one quick thing, Alonso, Sesko or Gyokeres for you?
Like I mentioned last week, I think, I think Gyokeres has a little bit of he has, I think, I think he has, I think he has a lot of ability. I
Yeah.
think he's got a lot of pace, a lot of talent. Obviously he scored a lot of goals um, in the Portuguese league, but the issue is that it's the Portuguese league to where even I could score 10 goals.
Yeah.
So I think the difference is that I think Sesko is more raw talent, and he's younger. So I think the argument is that he's getting better, on a better side, Arsenal side. To whereas Gyokeres, he does play in Portugal, so you're basically getting more of a risk with him because I believe it was Gabriel Maghalaes and Saliba did a good job of keeping him scoreless. And as an Arsenal fan, that's kind of concerning because what if he can't score with the talented back line of other teams or other clubs? So that's not worrisome because I think it eventually worked out. I said last week that on this podcast I preferred Bucharest, but with Sesko, I think he's better for this team. But either way, I'm good with either one. It's just on the slag.
Stefan is slag is in the house. So
But either way, right? I
good
think
to
there's
see you.
potential for both of them. I think with Bucharest, I think the goals will go down because the way Arteta plays, he uses the wings a lot.
And just going to the Premier League as well, it should go down. But
I think
that's a gold machine, right?
Yeah, but I think Sesko is better for this team. Now, there's rumors that if we buy both of them, we'll change formation because neither one can be on the bench. So I think we're going to play. If we play both of them, play in Tony's beloved 4-4-3 formation, 3-4-3 formation.
4-3-4.
No. It'd be a 3-4-1.
3-4-1-1.
Oh.
3-4-2-1.
Yeah.
With 12 wingbacks in there.
I don't think Tony's been paying attention, man.
I give you a thumbs up.
Okay.
Tony's in the upright position.
For me, I will not play in that formation. I play 4-4-2 formation.
Where's the tip of your thumb?
Right there, right? See?
That one's for all the slags out there. Looks like a lily. All right. Leave it there. Good night. Alonso, thanks for being here. Tony. Thanks for being here.
I think very.
We got that
twice.
Tony's gone. All right, guys. Thanks for being here. Really, really good show. I really enjoyed the Thursday Night Forum tonight, and lots of people in the chat box. Great to see. It looks like Tony's coming back. Just in time to say goodbye, Tony. Say good night, Tony.
Good night, Tony.
Good night, Tony. Good night, Alonso. And we're still live. We will be back next Thursday. We'll be talking about the fixture list. Will be revealed to us next Thursday. Take care, everyone. We're out of here.
We play everyone twice.
End the stream.